Good evening. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Arlington Select Board on April 7th, 2025. For the next few minutes, I am Select Board Chair Steve DeCourcy. Joining me tonight are
John Hurd.
Eric Helmuth.
Diane
Leonard Diggins.
James Sweeney, Town Manager. Michael Cunningham, Town Council.
Ashley Marr, Board Administrator.
Tonight's meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format consistent with provisions in state law for remote participation in public meetings. Before we begin, please note the following. This meeting is being conducted in the Select Board chambers and over Zoom. It is being recorded and simultaneously broadcasted on ACMi. People wishing to join the meeting by Zoom may find information on how to do so on the town's website. Both Zoom participants and persons watching on ACMi can follow the posted agenda materials found on the town's website, specifically the Select Board Agendas and Minutes page. If technical difficulties sever the remote connection to one or more participants and efforts to reconnect within a reasonable period of time fail, the in-person meeting will continue at the discretion of the chair, provided that a quorum of the board is physically present. Zoom participants are encouraged to retain the phone number provided in their confirmation email for a backup audio connection to the meeting. There will be opportunities for public comment at tonight's meeting during open forum and the agenda item concerning the request for a package store license. If you are attending by Zoom and want to participate, please raise your hand when the chair asks if any members of the public wish to be heard on a particular article. With that, let's see how much of the town's business we can get done tonight. Before I turn to item 2, I just want to thank the voters of Arlington for returning me to the board for another 3 years. Thank you. It's been an honor to serve these past 6 years, and I look forward to serving the town again for the next 3 years. And now, moving on to item 2, the organizational meeting for the purpose of electing a chair and vice chair. And for that, I will turn it over to our town council, Michael Cunningham. Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. DeCourcy. Just for purposes of selecting a new chair, a temporary chair of the board, and I would accept a motion for any nominations this time for the position of chair of the select board. Mr. Diggins?
Thank you, Mr. Town Council. I'd like to nominate Mrs. Mahan for chair.
Thank you, Mr. Diggins. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion or further? Yes, Mrs. Mahan.
I'd like to move to close nominations.
A second to on a motion to close nominations. All those in favor?
Is it a roll call? No?
No.
Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Now on a motion to elect Mrs. Mahan as the new chair of the select board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Mrs. Mahan, congratulations.
Thank you. Now we do the switch, sorry. I tried to do this as expeditiously as possible. Okay, I would like to now open the nominations for vice chair. Are there any nominations? Mr. DeCourcy?
Yep, I nominate Mr. Diggins.
Motion by Mr. DeCourcy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Helmuth. Any further nominations? If not, I'll take a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
By Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. Hurd. On a motion to close nominations by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. Hurd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. On a motion to appoint Mr. Diggins as vice chair. On a motion by Mr. DeCourcy, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Congratulations, Mr. Diggins. Now, how are we going to get those two to move?
Calling the movers.
Oh, did I change my thing? Someone did it for me, thank you.
Oh, wow.
My nameplate's stapled down to the desk.
I never really checked
Exactly.
to make sure it's still me. Maybe I've been replaced.
Thank you, everyone. I, too, would like to thank the voters who came out and voted and re-elected Mr. DeCourcy. It's, I didn't say this at the last meeting, but it's a pleasure how every one of my colleagues comes to this group and also has different techniques in terms of being chair. And I always look forward to Mr. DeCoursey with his many hats that he wears, and being such a great chair and moving us along expeditiously. And thank you, Mr. Diggins, for agreeing to work with me, God bless you, as my vice chair. But you know what that means, Mr. 5 a.m.
Yeah, there will be a lot of 6:30 a.m. calls.
And with that, I would also like to thank our colleague on the school committee, Ms. Morgan, for her election tonight as chair of the school committee. Congratulations, good to see you. And my first order of business is I am going to take agenda item 20 out of order in light of poor Superintendent Holman has seen a lot of myself and Mr. DeCoursey and the manager today, so you're going to have to see us a little bit longer. But I'd like to take and invite the superintendent and et al. Up for agenda item 20, discussion and vote, authorize superintendent of schools to submit SOI.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, members of the select board, town manager. Thanks for having us. My name is Liz Homan. I'm the superintendent of schools. I am joined by Rochelle Rubino. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm principal of the Audison Middle School. Thanks for having us tonight.
And we are here to talk to you about submitting a statement of interest for the rebuild of Audison Middle School and to talk to you a little bit about why. And I'll be talking through a little bit of the rationale. This is just sort of a sampling of some of the things that you'll find in the application, which we're still working on. You have a draft copy of it in your materials for this evening. We're still putting the finishing touches on it. The vote is an authorization for me to submit the SOI, and we just went over it with the school committee moments ago. We're joined, as Ms. Mahan mentioned, by the chair of the school committee, Jane Morgan, and they voted in the affirmative to have me submit the SOI earlier this evening. So we're here to speak with you because it is a requirement of the MSBA that we also receive the vote of the select board to submit the SOI also. So just a really quick walkthrough of my agenda. I'm going to talk through what our priorities are for the statement of interest, what the major concerns are that are prompting us to seek this funding so that we can rebuild the Audison Middle School, a little bit about the SOI and MSBA process and where we are in it, and then I have the language for a vote to authorize submission of a proposal to the MSBA. So our priorities, when you submit a statement of interest to the MSBA provides 8 priorities that you can choose from in their online portal. So we've chosen 2 priorities as the reason why we're submitting a request at this point. They're not explicitly linked to enrollment. However, enrollment pressure is one of the considerations that we have in mind right now. At least in part, we're not including enrollment as a concern because it would be if we were putting all of the students in one middle school. We're not necessarily planning on doing that. We could, as part of the process, take a look at grade distribution at the school, but we also have what looks to be stabilizing enrollments. If we were to get projections that said that at some later date we could anticipate increased enrollments, then we would potentially submit, if we weren't to be accepted into this round, at a later round with enrollment as a potential reason. But for right now, we're focused on replacement, renovation, modernization of facility systems, like roofs, windows, boilers. We'll talk a lot about these things in a moment. And number 7 on their list of 8 reasons, which is replacement or addition to an obsolete building to provide for a full range of programming. We don't find the programming to be able to really be enacted, implemented in the building as it is currently designed and built. And so these are the 2 priorities we're seeking. And like I said, we're not seeking enrollment as a reason now, but that's not to say that they couldn't be considered in the future. So I want to start with some of the major building concerns on our minds. And Ms. Rubino, if I miss anything here, or you have some additional color to add to the explanation, please feel free to chime in or stop me. So we did a capital needs assessment in 2022. They went through the building and they took a look at all of the major building systems as part of that capital needs assessment and gave us a sense of what it would cost for us to renovate the building and to sustain and maintain those renovations over time. They highlighted when the vendor that we contracted with did that assessment, an immediate need for at least $500,000, and that was in 2022 dollars, in boiler repairs, and $300,000 by 2027, which we've almost reached, along with millions in other HVAC updates that I'll talk through a little bit. One of those major updates would have been to the pneumatic control system, which tends to have sensor issues that will trip valves to always open. And one of the major educational impacts of this is that one of those sensor breaks, it creates a chain reaction. All of the vents are fully open, and this is in the middle of the winter, so it's cold outside, and the heat comes blasting through those vents. And it is incredibly hot in the classrooms.
Yes.
And so the teachers will open the windows to relieve some of the heat because you cannot learn in a space where you're sweating. And the challenge there is, of course, that we're also trying to be sustainable, and the teachers know that, and they don't want to create a situation where you're sort of creating a feedback loop, because it actually is harder to fix the sensors when you do that because they're sensing the cold. And so we end up in this back and forth where we're trying to repair it, but also trying to maintain a learning environment that's manageable. And the issue is really in the design of the building. It's obsolete at this point because there is not a system that allows us to track the temperature in the rooms, and not a system that allows us to automatically set or know where the sensor is that's broken. And so that system in particular is one that would need replaced, but is exceptionally expensive to replace, and that's in addition to the boiler repairs noted above. There are also cooling systems in the central portion of the building. These create really challenging issues in the summer because they cool that central core, which is where people are occupying the building in the summer. We also sometimes use some of the other spaces in the summer, but primarily the administrative wing is open. Some of our music wings will be open in the summer. Condensation hits that humid air, and that creates a lot of issues with water. And so we have needed to do mold remediation and monitoring in the summer. We needed to do some extensive mold remediation at the start of this school year in the music wing because of condensation that was undetected in the walls along the vents for the air conditioning system that created a mold issue within the walls at the Ottoson. Once we discovered it, it needed quite a bit of attention from our facilities team in order to make sure that we were creating a safe environment. And we also had to do an air quality study just to make sure that it was safe to be in the room, which it was. And every time we've done this, we have an incredible facilities team. They take this very seriously. We do the air quality assessment, we do the mold remediation, but it's expensive and it's time consuming, and it's, attention that gets paid to something when there are so many other things that the facilities team needs to work on and do, particularly at the start of the school year. None of those systems are energy efficient or sustainable. They're all slowing our progress towards sustainability goals, and really the whole system when it comes to heating and cooling in that building is obsolete for the time we find ourselves in today. Anything to add about HVAC?
No,
All right.
covered it.
Okay, moving on to roof. So we have a sort of constant challenge with pooling and ice melt on the flat roof at OMS. This is really, from everything we've heard from vendors we've had several out, a design challenge. It creates water damage inside the building because then you end up with leaks. When you end up with pooling, if there's any vulnerability underneath that pool of water, you're going to have a leak. And that water damage can be found on the ceiling tiles as a result of some of that roof flooding. It's unsightly, sure, but I think the larger concern for staff is what's growing on the other side of that ceiling tile. We do take them out and check and replace them to the extent possible, but it is throughout the building, even despite some of our efforts to mitigate the not very pretty ceiling tiles. We have had to replace furniture and fixtures when water damage occurred in classrooms over the past several years. That has displaced students on occasion. It has disrupted learning. And like I said, with the air conditioning units, we've had to remediate mold damage several times at OMS. Sometimes that's due to the pooling on the roof, not because of the AC. So the roof design, because it is flat and because there are areas where it slopes in the wrong direction towards the building, there is going to be some pooling there. We've installed drains here and there. We've re-waterproofed sections of the roof several times over the last several years. But unless you redo the entire roof, then you're not really going to address the issue. And unfortunately, the design of the building would necessitate building a roof that would probably be designed similarly unless you fully redesigned it, at which point you're talking about an expense that doesn't warrant the renovation. You might as well rebuild when you're talking about that with HVAC, with some of these other things. So next, accessibility. There are a lot of areas of the building that create accessibility challenges for anyone with mobility or vision issues. If you've been in the Ottoson, you know there are 5 levels?
Yes, yes, 5, because I always say there's 2 third floors, so yes, 5 levels.
That makes it challenging to navigate.
Yes.
For students, but also there's lots of step up, step downs. So if you're in the cafeteria, there's a step down. The ramp is on the clear other end of the cafeteria. So it's not super accessible for students with accessibility challenges. Do you want to speak to this a little bit?
Yes, especially accessing the wood gym. There's no way that you can really enter from without having to go behind the stage and then kind of circle around in a back area that's can be rather dark at times, even when the lights are turned on. And just with the layout of the building, I say there's 2 third floors because one side of the building has a 3rd floor that's a little higher than the other side of the building that also has a 3rd floor. So that in and of itself can be confusing when you're telling students and telling them where to go and navigate the building, and having to access one elevator on one side of the building and then cross to the other side to get to the other side takes a long time for students with mobility concerns to navigate a building that is rather large and with only 2 minutes of passing time. Obviously, we give them extension to get to class, but that is a challenge.
As we've worked to keep more of our students in district if they're having challenges with disabilities, we have more students who this might apply to, we need to make sure that the building that they're navigating is one they're able to access very easily. And students end up with challenges related to mobility on a temporary basis all the time. And we've had to redo or reassess lots of the flooring and visibility of step up, step down, because we have a student on crutches for a short period of time and an area is proving slippery or needing more traction. So, also, because of the design of the building, lots of small group learning spaces and program areas are isolated from core programming. So if you need to do a small group breakout so that students can take a test, you often have to traverse a large chunk of the building to do that because there are not small group learning areas adjacent to classrooms in all parts of the building. And that's really a design feature that most school buildings have these days, but it's not one that was common when Ottoson was designed, its layout was designed. So there's some challenges to inclusion there too. Okay. Next, I want to talk about the exterior envelope. So when we did the 2022 capital needs assessment, they noted lots of different areas where the exterior envelope needs some shoring up, and this is contributing to some of the water damage that we're seeing, some of the mold remediation we've needed to do. So, for example, there are areas of mortar loss, cracking, some exposed infrastructure beneath some of those exterior surfaces. There's suspended ceiling tiles in one of the gyms, which I cannot imagine really what the design logic was there to put a suspended ceiling in a gym where there are basketballs flying around. But we don't replace them because, I mean, why? They're gonna get displaced again pretty swiftly, and we can't really play anything in that gym anyway because we're worried about the lighting, like a ball hitting the lights, and then you're gonna have glass fall, and it's gonna create a safety hazard. And do you want to speak any more to that?
With the blue gym, it really is, you cannot play a basketball game in the way that basketball is intended to be played. It really is it can be a danger for students because even if it hits the ceiling and then the ceiling breaks while they're in there, and we could be causing harm to students. So that is a major concern, especially with the increased enrollment in students. We do need to utilize all of the gym spaces for our PE classes. So that is the other concern is the heating in that area. Because of the roof, oftentimes during the winter months, the cold air is coming in through the ceiling in the blue gym, and it's freezing cold in the blue gym area, and then the cold air then goes into the stairwells that then go up the building. So certain areas of the school are extremely cold, and then other areas of the school are extremely warm. So there's a variation in temperature. So you might be feeling like you're in a sauna in the wood gym, and then you're freezing in the blue gym. That staff are wearing hats like they're outside and gloves.
Yeah, that is not there's no insulated ceiling where that drop ceiling is. So they've assessed that and found that there was no insulation in that roof, which is causing more sustainability challenges and also driving up heating costs when, there's plenty of heat, you just gotta go to a different part of the building. So, just to wrap us up, when it comes to layout, fixtures, programming, this is one of the other major areas that we're thinking about for the SOI. There's an awkward layout. It doesn't give a lot of common areas for collaborative learning. There's lots of sort of individual hallways at different levels of the building. There are several spaces that are being retrofitted for new uses. We have lots of science classrooms that do not have lab sinks, do not have like what you would expect in a middle school science classroom. They don't have the furniture and fixtures required to do lab sciences in those classrooms. And because there's not a lot of common areas, there's not a lot of teacher collaboration, interdisciplinary learning, and there are, like I said, challenges to inclusion. All of those are aspects of the plan we're trying to enact in the public schools, and that we've been pretty successful in getting a lot of ground covered doing, but at Ottoson, it has proven challenging because of the layout of the building. So for all of those reasons, we are interested in submitting a statement of interest. And here's some of the process attached to that. So the school committee authorized me to submit earlier this afternoon. We are here now to present and discuss with you and seek an authorization for me to submit. The deadline is April 11th. We're going to work on the final touches on the application over the course of the next couple of days and try to have that in ahead of the deadline. And then we'll enter a consideration period for eligibility by the MSBA. They do study visits if necessary in the fall, somewhere between August and October. They say that sort of how long that takes and when you'll find out has to do with how many of those study visits they need to do. If we're invited into the eligibility period after they do the senior study visits, then we have a period of 270 days to complete several steps. If we get through all of those steps, and part of that is making sure that we can fund a feasibility study, which is figuring out what sort of needs to happen in order for us to move forward in a building project, then we would have to secure that funding during that 270 days and meet a number of other benchmarks, and then we would be invited into design for a project. So that is what our next steps will be, and if it is the wish of the select board, I would ask for a vote to authorize submission of a statement of interest, and the vote language is there and in your materials. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, any questions from the board? Mr. DeCoursey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Holman and Ms. Rubino, for the presentation. And I was one of the first classes to be in the new Ottoson with renovations in the mid-'70s, and I experienced the blue gym then, and all we could do was play floor hockey in it at the time, and not good to developing a basketball shot at all with the low ceiling. And clearly at that time period, and even in '97, when you look what was done, I think at that point in 1997, we knew the high school was going to be coming along at some point, and the Ottoson probably didn't get the renovation that the building probably could have used, but because of other circumstances and everything, that's where we are. And I know you're stuck now with a building that is a mishmash, and so I'm this is more of a statement at this point. I'm happy to support this, but my question is, if we make a comparison, let's do it with the high school. From the time you submitted a statement of interest from the high school, I know that was before your administration, until completion of feasibility and even start of construction, what would be the parallel here in terms of how long this process could take?
I think that might depend upon what some of the factors are that we would want to take into consideration as part of a feasibility study. One of the complications of the Ottoson site is that it doesn't have as much space as the AHS site does. And so we'd really need to think about, are we looking at a phased project? Are we looking at moving the students off-site? If so, where? I have no answer to that question at the moment. We would need to work on that. And so all of those pieces, like in my experience, if you're looking at a different site, then you're identifying what the possibilities are for a potential different site. You're identifying whether or not you need to consider an adjustment of programming and grade level bands for that site. And that could be part of that site work phase that comes right after feasibility. And so it would depend what that entailed. It shouldn't be more than a few years, and that before you're really looking at beginning construction, but I have been part of projects where that part has taken 4 or 5 years. It depends on the complications associated with the site determination and whether or not you're looking at doing a phased project on the site or needing to figure out whether to relocate students during the project.
Okay, and so with that answer, it seems to me, it's not something we could do as a town next year, but from what you've described, this is going to take a while. It's important to get the process started, and we'll see where we are, and we'll see where we are fiscally as a town, where we are as a state, and as a country for that matter, as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeCoursey. Mr. Hurd?
Well, Mr. Corsi, I was going to comment that I feel old because the last time it was renovated, I was in 8th grade at the Odyssey in 1997, but I think you might have one-upped me there. So my question was going to be also relative to displacement, because I'll have kids in the Odyssey for the next 4 years, but, I'm confident, I'm definitely in agreement that it needs to be done. And, we get a lot of complaints about the condition of the Audison building. It was old when I was there, and most of the building is still the building that I went to in 1996 before it was renovated. So, I think the renovation they did back then was what the town had an appetite for, and I think it was a pretty close vote on that one in 1997. But it definitely needs to be updated, and I think as a town with our schools, we're definitely trending more towards long-term solutions, and I think that's what we're looking for here. And I'm confident in the school department's ability to do what's right for the kids of Arlington, so I'm happy to support it.
Mr. Helmut?
Thank you. I did not go to the Audison for middle school, but I'm happy to take my colleague's word for it and move approval. I appreciate the extensive presentation and also the far more extensive documentation that was submitted to us. And the photographs just keep telling the story and say almost everything that needs to be said. But I appreciate the care that you've given this and not taking this for granted, but really doing your homework to show the town that we need to start this process. Thank you.
Mr. Helmut?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll second the motion, and as Mr. Helmut said, you provided a lot more information in the packet that we received, and I could ask a lot of questions and make a lot of comments, but I'm not, because we have a pretty long agenda ahead of us, so I'll just stop with the second, and maybe if I have some things later on, I'll just contact you offline. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do want to thank you all for being here tonight. You're, depending on second, third, fourth, or fifth meeting of the day. I can testify to 2 now. And just, I know this is something you touched on in your remarks, and as we get further down the road, but I'll just put a plug in since you're there and you're captive audience. When it gets to the phase, and you were talking about the cafeteria and students that sometimes have temporary and/or permanent disabilities, as you've done with the other projects, working with Mr. Ross out of the DEI office, as well as ADA compliance rules. One of the things that I've heard from community members, I heard it about a meeting the other night at the high school, is that as we're moving forward, if we could, not that you're not doing this and you're not going to, if it's going to be a space, I know I did not go to the Audison. I went to the east. It was the east and the west back then, so. If the cafeteria is going to be used as a public space in the sense of having parents, grandparents, community meeting around a school issue, when you get to that design stage, and I'm sure you've already done this and are thinking about it, but what I've heard and directly and indirectly from people is, if you do have a handicap and you go to a meeting and the meeting's right there on the second floor, but you have to go in, there's only one entrance, and you have to go way over there to go up in the elevator to come way back down there. And so if that can be, if the cafeteria is going to be used as a public space beyond just with approval and supervision. So I just put that to you. So Any further questions or comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. Diggins, to vote to authorize the superintendent of schools, Dr. Holman, to submit statement of interest for Ottoson Middle School to Massachusetts School Building Authority. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote.
Actually, their MSB is very, very strict. They make us, you have to read that language and then do a roll call. They ask, because they ask exactly what everybody's vote
So,
was.
Mr. Helmuth, if you'd
I
like
have
to
it in
read
front
that language, and then I'm going to ask Attorney Cunningham to
Thank
do
you.
the roll
Sorry for
call.
that.
That's okay. Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you. So I make the following motion. Resolved, having convened an open meeting on Monday, April 7th, 2025, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Select Board of the Town of Arlington, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, does vote to authorize the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Elizabeth Homan, to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the Statement of Interest form dated April 2025 for the Ottoson Middle School located at 63 Acton Street, Arlington, Massachusetts, 02476, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future, : replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, and replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the Arlington Public Schools to filing an application for funding within the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Thank you. So
How'd I do?
moved. I'm
Beautiful.
perfect.
Thank you.
Mr. Helmuth, and second is
Second.
by Mr. Diggins. Attorney Cunningham, roll call, please.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
Mr. Diggins? Yes. Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes, thank you.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Have a
you.
good evening.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next, we'll go back to the agenda, Agenda Item 3, the Community Preservation Act Committee presentation. I believe we have Sue Doctorow and David Swanson.
Let's actually make the motion.
Okay. Hello? We good?
You just want to start and both state your name just for the record. We know you.
Sure. I'm Sue Doctorow.
Dave Swanson.
Thank you for having us. So next slide, please. Oh, we skipped one. Okay. Oh, yeah, fiscal year 2026. Okay, next slide, please. So, as you know, the Community Preservation Act funds projects in 3 categories: community housing, open space and recreation, and historic preservation. So we have 11 projects we're going to recommend, and we're going to move through these pretty quickly, so we invite you to ask questions afterwards, okay? As you also know, we're required to spend 10% in each of the categories, and then we're allowed to spend 5% in administrative fees, and the rest is flexible. All right, running through the projects. In the housing category, there's a Winslow Towers fire alarm upgrade system, and this is to replace a 30-year-old system. Next, please. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we're $545,125.50. And essentially, this is a support type grant because it's designed to be flexible so that they can respond to opportunities. Next, please.
Next, we have 4 projects in the open space and recreation category. The first is a public lands tree survey for $50,000, and this aligns with the town's open space and rec plan, as well as the public lands management plan. Next slide. The next project would be the Urban Wilds Initiative for $75,000 to provide seed money aimed at enhancing the ecological integrity for 14 Conservation Commission properties in town. Next slide. And then $250,000 for a McLennan Park Community Garden to create 50 new community garden plots to meet the overwhelming demand for gardening space in Arlington. Next slide. $545,125.50 for the McLennan Skate Park restoration, which is in poor condition and at risk of closure. Next slide.
Okay, now we're moving into historic preservation category. And for the Cyrus Dallin Museum, we have a grant for archive preservation and digitizing and rehousing. And so here, they're protecting the historic resource, which is the documents. So it's storage of the documents as well as scanning them and providing them online for the public. And this is the third project of, a series that they've done, this digitization and preservation. Next, please. This is a new one for us, and it's Arlington Veterans History Project. And here, the historic resource is the stories of the veterans and their families. So they've already done a prototype video, which is available online, but they want to have video, a very professional and interesting video interviewing the veterans and their families. And they have a variety of suggestions for how they're going to present those to the public. Next, please. The Jason Russell House chimney capping. This is a small expenditure. It's really continuing the Jason Russell House's series of projects to preserve the building. And this is pretty straightforward, to stop water leakage and to preserve the artifacts that are in the attic. Next.
And then rounding out this category, two more projects, one for $500,000 for the Parmenter School exterior preservation project. It's to fund phase one of a multi-phase project, multi-phase restoration. The first phase being aimed at the roof, chimney, and gutters. Next slide. And the last is $300,000 for the building we sit in now, which is obviously significant. And the $300,000 application is specifically to fund an owner's project manager to oversee future restoration efforts that we anticipate could be on the order of 4 phases and roughly $10 million. So, next slide. That rounds out the 11 projects that we're proposing for funding this fiscal year.
And just to add that there were 2 projects, the highest requests that we had to cut, and we spoke with the applicants, and they were able to achieve significant part of their goals with the lower expenditure. So we spent everything we thought we had.
I know that feeling. Thank you. Any questions, comments from Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, co-chairs of the CPA. Many a time I've sat at that table on the other side of this. And I know how much work went into not only the presentation, but the very difficult decisions. I have to say, this is a really great spread of projects that it kind of shares the wealth around town. It's really thoughtful in terms of good bang for the buck. And so I move endorsement. And I think just to clarify, and you can for the public, you can verify this, that we're not actually approving this funding, that we're endorsing this. You'll take this to town meeting and let them know that we think it's a good idea. That's
Yes.
the idea. Yeah. Just a couple of comments on the projects. I really appreciate, as you know, I am the Select Board's representative to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I think this is the first year where the housing portion of this, for the most part, the big lion's share of that has just gone to the Trust Fund Board. And I know that you've been really good partners with the Trust Fund Board to kind of establish a relationship, establish trust, establish understanding of what this would be used for. And I'm really excited that that we have the ability to respond more flexibly and nimbly to opportunities that come up to develop affordable housing that don't fall in the town meeting annual cycle. So thank you for that, and I hope the town meeting agrees that that's a good idea. And just finally, a question bouncing off of what Co-Chair Swanson said about the town hall building envelope. And as we look up here on the wall, those of you who are here, you can see why this might be an issue. But I wonder, Madam Chair, if I could, through you, maybe ask the town manager to just give us a little more detail on what the scope of that and duration of that project could look like, and what that the $300,000 would fund for an OPM.
Mr. Feeney?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Helmuth. So the first step in any large-scale envelope project would be, and it's required by state law for the town to retain what is called an owner's project manager, that would then guide us through the project planning to determine how many phases and into which phases a potential project should be broken down, if at all, and then to proceed through the procurement for design services, and then to proceed through design, and then ultimately to choose whether or not we want to pursue either a design bid build construction method, or alternatively to choose a construction manager at risk construction delivery method. So there is quite a few elements of a project of this size and scope to consider. We are fortunate, because of the CPA, to have time to actually contemplate this project further and figure out what is the best phasing and delivery method, because we took care of the most significant issue that was delivered by the clock tower via a prior year CPA grant. So we have stopped what I'll call the worst of the bleeding, though you will note we do still have some lingering concerns. But really, this project is ideally going to focus solely on the envelope. So what that means is the masonry facade, the fenestration, meaning the windows and doors, as well as the roof. So really that which keeps the elements out of the building. And I will just note that given that this building is historically protected, we do have to replace the clock tower, and we would have to restore in kind the wood windows as you see them today. So just noting that for the public's benefit. But, you know, there are, to your initial question, there would be a number of different ways to potentially phase the project. You could break it down by subcontract vendor and potentially just pursue the roof at one point, and then pursue the masonry, and then pursue window and door restoration. You could pursue a method where you introduce a general contractor and perform all of the work at once, and just, you know, sort of do it one face of the building at a time, so that you don't have staging surrounding the entire building. So I think there's a lot of different things to consider, and I wouldn't venture to know at this point, without the professional consultation, which method we should go with. But you know, it's obviously a project that is perhaps a bit overdue, but also one, you know, this building has served us very well for quite a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Feeney, and I do want to say that I really appreciate that these funds are going to proper planning. Given the scope of this, and given that we want to get this right, I think that's a really good investment, and I hope the town meeting sees that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Helmuth. Any other board members? Mr. Hurd?
Second, I'll just say, after the past couple agenda items, it's good to know that our town manager and our school superintendent are such experts in building construction. It seems that we're in good hands.
Okay, see no further questions or comments, and a motion by Mr. Helmuth to endorse, seconded by Mr. Hurd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous vote. Thank you, Ms. Doctorow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Dave. Next, we'll go to a proclamation for Community Development Week, April 21st through 25th. Not sure, Mr. Feeney, if there's anybody here for that.
No, Mrs. Mahoney.
No, okay. I guess where it's short, on the shorter side versus longer. I'll read the entirety of it. Recognize the week of April 21st through the 25th as Community Development Week, whereas the week of April 21st through 25th, 2025 has been designated as National Community Development Week by the National Community Development Association to celebrate the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program, and whereas the CDBG program provides annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide decent, safe, and affordable housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities to low and moderate income people, and whereas over the past 50 years, our community has received over $60 million in CDBG funds, and whereas each year, affordable housing and affordable housing rehabilitation activities, public service activities, public facilities and improvements activities, and economic development activities are funded. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Arlington designates the week of April 21st through the 25th, 2025 as National Community Development Week in support of this valuable program that has made tremendous contributions to the viability of the housing stock, infrastructure, public services, and economic vitality of our community. And be it further resolved that our community opposes any attempts to eliminate the programs and urges Congress to recognize the outstanding work being done locally and nationally by CDBG by supporting CDBG in fiscal year 2026. Is there a motion?
So moved.
By Mr. DeCoursey. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, on a motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Next, we have the consent agenda items 5 through 13. 5 minutes of meetings, March 10th, 2025, March 17th, 2025, March 24th, 2025. For approval, Memorial Day ceremony, May 26, 2025, by our Director of Veteran Services, Phil McGovern. Number 7, approval EV and e-bike show and tell from Talia Fox, our Sustainability Manager, and Lori Kenshaff, Electrify Arlington. 8, we have outdoor dining and sidewalk cafe applications from Boone Noon Market, 161 Mass Ave, Cafe Nero, 321 Broadway, Donut Villa, 319 Broadway, Fatouche, 142 Mass Ave, and Kickstand Cafe, 594 Mass Ave. A request for a special one-day beer and wine license on April 11, 2025 at Robbins Memorial Town Hall for a Dallin PTO fundraiser, Jamie Fish from the Dallin PTO. And then we have a request for a special one-day beer and wine license April 11, 2025, at Robbins Memorial Town Hall for Monotony Beer Hall by Robert Brazil, Arlington Historical Society. Another request, special one-day beer and wine license, April 12, 2025, at the Whittemore Robbins House for a private event, Mary Kiley. A request for a contractor drain layer license, Spencer Contracting Corporation in Peabody, Mass. And a reappointment to our Affordable Housing Trust and Board of Trustees of James Nagel, term to expire 3/31/2027. Mr. Hurd.
So on number 13, I believe that should be John or Jack Nagel, however you want to word it. And I just texted my sister just to confirm, because I didn't want to look like a fool on TV, but yeah, that should be John Nagel,
John.
who is home, who just had a new baby girl.
New baby, yay!
Mrs. Mahan, I would just like to note that also for agenda item number 10, it states that the date is April 11th, 2025 for the Monotony Beer Hall. It is in fact the 19th, and the reference actually indicates that it's just wrong on the agenda item listed.
Okay. So, Mr. Hurd, with those two amendments, moves approval. Is there a second? Mr. Diggins?
I'll happily second that and say that I think that the EV and bike show and tell is exciting. You know, it's glad to see us trying something like that. And so this John Nagel is the same Nagel that I call Jack Nagel, right?
Yes.
Yes. So happily, approve his appointment and just say that it's been a pleasure working with him, in a variety of contexts. He's just always very accessible, and so clearly he cares, about, the housing authority. So glad to see him willing to do more work with the trust. Thank you.
That's great. So John is Jack, but not James. And I coached one year his wife, Sarah, in cheerleading. Any further questions or comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Diggins, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, unanimous vote. We now go to appointments. Number 14, Veterans Council. Michael Alonia, term to expire June 30th, 2027.
Hello,
Hello. You could,
do I sit?
yes, please, and just, again, state your name correctly, because I have a feeling I may not have. And if you could just tell us about your interest on the Veterans Council.
Michael Thomas Alonia,
Thank you.
first generation.
Oh, nice to have you.
No, my dad would want me to mention that.
You have a big soft spot for that. I can hear my dad talking in my ear all the time, too, so. And your appointment is to the Veterans Council. Is there anything you'd like to highlight in terms of what you think you'll bring to the council? What attracted you to the council? Just a sentence or two? You don't have to, it's up to you.
Well, I have long had a great interest in, of course, veterans' benefits and interests, and especially the VA. I've gotten such excellent treatment there.
Why don't you tell them about your service, your prior service?
I beg your pardon?
Why don't you tell them about your prior service?
Oh, okay. My prior service, I was in the Navy fleet, and they asked for volunteers for Vietnam, and 72,000 sailors volunteered over a weekend. And I was one of the ones that was selected. And I was in swift boats. You may not know about them. They were 50-foot long, all aluminum boats, no armor to speak of, but heavily armed. They were heavily armed themselves. And we patrolled both on the high seas because North Vietnamese steel trawlers would be coming down. And we used them on the many waterways of Vietnam, including in the Mekong Delta, where the boats weren't suited for either task. They were meant to be just offshore, not high seas. And they didn't have any armor, so they had no business going up these rivers where the jungle comes right down to the water's edge. So it's all ambushville, the whole thing. And, but they worked, it worked. Someone took a chance, and they were right.
And here you are.
And yeah, and here I am. After that, I got an offer I couldn't refuse, so I got out of the Navy and went to Harvard Business School. And then after that, I immediately went back to the Far East to do a startup in Hong Kong. And then following that, I had to come back because of an illness. And I then was hired by the Supreme Judicial Court to be court reform manager, which I was hired for 2 years. I managed to stretch it to a little over 20 years. And then I was subsequently appointed Assistant Secretary of A&F under 2 Republican governors who either were ignorant of or didn't care about my politics.
And now we fast forward to today. And first, I'd like to respectfully and gratefully thank you for your service with the United States Navy, and as a second adjunct, also your family, for supporting you in this. I'll turn to my colleagues. Mr. Diggins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I'll happily approve, appointment. And I also want to say that, on top of your military service, all that you've done afterwards is very impressive. And on top of that, your reference, to Taylor Swift shows that you are staying current. And yes, go ahead.
We were the first ones to call ourselves Swifties.
You should have,
Is that in the record?
you should have trademarked it, so just think, and as I was reading through your resume, I appreciate the footnotes, and it is the first time I've ever seen a footnote embedded in a footnote, So, hey, your creativity and your spunk is just really, really impressive, and I hope I have that, in a few more years.
Well,
One
amen to
thing-
that, Member Diggins. I just want to identify myself in terms of the playbill identities here. I'm John Fitzpatrick, Afghan war veteran, and also recently appointed as chair of the Veterans Council, I guess by popular acclamation. Mr. Nalonga has sat in on several of our meetings. He always has. You are as sharp as a tack, sir. And I can see why the Harvard Business School gladly had you. And he has contributed terrifically to our meetings, for which we are very grateful. And,
Well, thank you.
And I'm very grateful, as to echo what the board just said, for your service, sir.
There's one thing more I want to mention. On that small boat, we had 5 Americans and 1 Vietnamese. No one could tell us what to do. No senior officer. The Navy knew nothing about small boats. The Coast Guard knows everything. They were there ahead of us. Okay? And also, no one could tell us how to fight in those rivers in aluminum boats with no armor. No one had done it. So we had to figure it out as we went. And therefore, everybody on that boat had to know everything that anybody else knew, because we never knew when 20% of one guy is out of action, that's 20% of your crew. Who's going to go on the twin 50s? Machine guns. Now, who's going to do this? So because of getting so close to so many, it really always kept an amazingly part of my brain, even when I was a civilian, well, as I am now. There was a part of my brain that was always the U.S. Navy. And, oh, by the way, I'm commander of the local VFW here,
Right.
which are combat veterans.
Also a very valuable resource for us, I would add as well.
Thank you. Mr. DeCoursey?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll second Mr. Diggins' motion. And Mr. Logner, thank you for your service, just reiterating what other board members have said, and for your bravery in Vietnam, serving in 1965 in particular. And also, I was very impressed in 1998, you received the Outstanding Commonwealth Employee Award as part of your work for the SJC. So congratulations on that, and it's nice to see Mr. Fitzpatrick here.
Thank you for reminding me about that. Sure. I got to tell more people.
Yes, thank you. Any further questions or comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. Diggins to approve, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those unanimous vote. Thank you. We look forward to seeing both of you gentlemen in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members.
Next, we have Agenda Item 15, an appointment to the Council on Aging to Susan Gibbons, term to expire January 31st, 2028. Is Ms. Gibbons here?
She is.
So, yeah.
Yep. You got a 50-50 choice. Good to see you. If you could just state your name and sort of your interest or anything you would like to tell the board.
Okay, so my name's Susan Gibbons. I've lived in this town all my life. So the Council of Aging Director approached me and asked me if I wanted to be on the board. I've been volunteering for 3 years for the Council of Aging, so I thought about it, and so I decided to pursue it, and here I am.
Thank you. Mr. Hurd?
Move approval. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Mr. Diggins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll second. And it's always a good sign when the organization for which you work recommends me that you be a part of the administrative body, so thank you. And your resume, although short, it's very sweet and effective. So I understand why they want you to be a part. Thank you.
And I'd also like to thank you, Ms. Gibbons, for agreeing to volunteer to do this. Probably couldn't afford you, but we're thankfully, residents like yourself that, and a lot of times it's, going down and maybe not going down with the intention of joining a board, commission, committee, et cetera. But as Mr. Diggins said, when it's such a good fit and they recognize it's a reciprocity in terms of, what you've done and can do in the future. I look forward to it. So thank you so much for volunteering for this. And with that, a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Diggins. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hope to see you in the future. And agenda item 16, the Poet Laureate of Arlington. We have Thomas DeFreitas, term to expire June 30th, 2027. Hey, my first friend coming to this meeting. He was number one, I was number two, coming through the door. Good to see you.
An early bird, yes.
If you could just
Good
state your
evening.
name and,
My name is Thomas DeFreitas. I have been an Arlington resident since May of 2010, and it is my distinct privilege, my great joy, and a touch of trepidation to be sitting here as the nominee for 5th Poet Laureate of Arlington. Shall I speak a little to how poetry has
most
entered my...
definitely, yes,
Sure.
please.
I was born in 1969, and I mention that because I came to awareness in the age of the singer-songwriters. So my earliest poetry was probably pop music of the early 70s, Carole King, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, Don McLean. The words to songs that I would play over and over again on 45s, Brandy or a Fine Girl, Horse with No Name. I was 11 when I entered Boston Latin School. I discovered poetry on the printed page. My English teacher, Mr. Waldron, had a poster in the front of the room of a autumnal tree and a forked black path, and the last 5 lines of Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, I took the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference. And I misremembered the lines, and I apologize to the ghost of Robert Frost. I'll redeem myself later, I hope. At the age of 16, I heard the future Nobel laureate Seamus Heaney read at Boston College. And when you hear language like his, you get a feel for the sculpturedness, the consciousness of language, the cadence, I have to quote, old plow socks gorge the subsoil of each sense, and I am quickened with a redolence of farmland as a dark, unblown rose. These lines stayed with me. I discovered Dylan Thomas, who is like an ocean in a cage, or an ocean on the page, very tumultuous and very churning language, I would go to the beach. I would play truant from high school. On winter days, I would take the Blue Line to Revere Beach. I grew up in East Boston. And I would have these yellowing books of poetry with me, and I would read to myself, or if no one was around, I might read aloud. Poetry has always solaced me. My 20s and 30s were not the sunniest years, but I clung to poetry as something creative. I think we're all benefited by creativity, whether we produce it or whether we participate in it by consuming it, by hearing it, by reading it. In 2010, in my very early 40s, I moved to Arlington. And things looked up when I moved here. It was, I joined the New England Poetry Club when I started publishing in magazines with regularity. When the first call for the first poet laureate was issued in 2015, I applied. And I was not credentialed at all at the time, but I knew I wanted to participate in the life of poetry in this community and find out who the poets were. And our illustrious first poet laureate, Miriam Levine, assembled a workshop at the library twice a week at the time called The Beehive. And people shared their stories, and people learned the craft of writing, and everyone in that group had the good of the poem in mind. There was no rivalry, there was no tension. It was all, we were a community. And so I do devoutly believe in poetry as community building. I just want to pay quick tribute to the other three laureates since Miriam, Kathy Desjardins, whose sunny enthusiasm really brought her own unique perspective to the laureate post, and she shepherded a project which I was pleased to take part in, the Talking Chair Project. It was at the library in 2018. You sat in a chair, and out from the radio next to the chair came a recording of a poem. And that was a joy. Our third laureate, Stephen Ratiner, our pandemic laureate, a tireless dynamo of energy in the service of the art, and personally kind to me when I was burned out of my apartment in a fire in 2022. Very, very kind, and he established the Red Letter poems, which go out by email all around the world. And that is a project in which poems of mine have appeared a few times. And currently, Jean Flanagan, an enthusiast for poetry who likes to see how it can cross-pollinate with other arts. She believes devoutly, as I do, that poetry is communication. Even if a poem doesn't make sense immediately to the logical mind, it's communicating sound or music or a feeling of celebration or of lamentation. I believe that she's right with that. It shouldn't be, there are some academic poetries that are very closed in and self-referential or even non-referential. But I've learned in Arlington that poetry and the other arts do build community. Should I speak briefly about some plans I might have for my laureateship?
Yes, please.
I might want to institute a podcast. I'm not the most tech-savvy person in the world, but I would solicit help and see about a podcast, either featuring local poets or other poets of my acquaintance in the near area. Invigorate the social media of the Facebook page, as it were. Conducting targeted workshops on themes that touch us all. I think grief is a theme that touches us all. That was my first thought, to have that targeted workshop on a given theme. And I also want to say that I hope, as laureate, that I continue the fine examples of the past four laureates in being committed to diversity, to equity, to empathy, to tolerance, and to inclusion. I think those are not only Arlington ideals and should be American ideals, but they are fundamentally human ideals, which I cherish. So shall you indulge me in hearing an example of my work?
Yes, please.
All right. Going to read a poem from my first collection that I wrote remembering one of those times in Revere Beach when I was younger than that, and with my dad when I was about 3 years old. And we used to chase the waves. I'd run after the water as it receded and sort of rush back so I wouldn't get splashed. And this is a poem called Chasing the Waves. It's about father and son bonds, and after my dad died, it sort of served as his elegy. With Dad, Revere Beach, 1972. My 3-year-old legs would scurry to pursue the beast of the Atlantic in retreat. Of course, its watery paws would soon rush back to maul the shore. I'd run from their attack as quickly as I could on toddler feet. Delighted, Dad would look on and would shout encouragement and warning. Hey, watch out, they're gonna get you. I would shriek and laugh. I'm older now than Dad was then. No son to teach this excellent art of having fun, of chasing waves for an hour or a half.
Thank you. Very excited. Mr. Diggins?
She looks at me because I'm on the poet laureate selection.
And
Screening-
he can
screening
almost
committee.
match your passion.
But not his eloquence. I mean,
I said
Well,
almost.
keep a timer on me because I was inspired by Senator Booker earlier this week and, raring to go.
Oh, but you're not gonna get 25 hours.
We'll be out of here by the weekend, I'm sure.
But, so yes, when we interviewed him, I mean, it was easy. It was easy, to know that he was as a good prospect to be the poet laureate. So I will be very happy to make the motion that we accept him as the poet laureate. And should I do it now? Or should I do it later?
No, definitely.
I'll do it now, as I did with the previous poet laureate. I have 17 syllables for you. All right, so they are Thomas DeFreitas, Diamond Found, Arlington Rough, Gene Lee's Big Footsteps.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you all for your time and your
Appreciate it. Mr. Helmuth?
I'll second that and express my appreciation for the poetry that was in our packet. I thought it was beautiful. And also for your intention to be the listening laureate and the way that you outlined your desire to engage with particularly the youth of the community, to be a voice for the marginalized people in our community. And I'm really excited to see what you do. Thank you for serving.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for not only inspiring the passion, I'm really excited about what you're going to do, but also paying homage to our previous poet laureates. And I really feel the arts are so integral and play a different role depending on what the times are, what the situation is, an individual situation, a community situation. And the position of poet laureate really has grown into the envelope, I think, of the Arlington community, and it is definitely appreciated. Did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to interject that we do live in fraught political times, and however, I am confident that the arts heal. I've seen it firsthand at the Beehive. I've seen women poets speak of traumas and their personal stories being transmuted into art with exquisite skill and sensitivity, and how we would sit there sometimes around the bee table just absolutely hushed and awed at the bravery that these poets brought to the Beehive table. So if I can continue to be in the footsteps of those names of our previous laureates as being a catalyst for that kind of creativity, which I think would largely involve me just standing back and watching it happen in some ways. So, thank you again.
Thank you. And I know you will. I know you shall. Mr.
I just
Hurd?
want to mention too, thank you for your passion and enthusiasm. And I do, compounding that, I'm really happy in Arlington that we promote the arts, especially for our children, and, have opportunities for them to use their imagination, where I see with today, I was doing homework with my soon-to-be 12-year-old, and he said, watch this. He went into ChatGPT and said, write a 12-page essay on this, and it was like, in this new world where AI is kind of like stepping in for creativity, it's good to have outlets where we can, direct them to, use their own creativity and outside of what the computer generates on their behalf.
I am happily a dinosaur in some respects. I appreciate technology. It has marvelous potentials, but yes, as you mentioned, it does have drawbacks that we lose a certain immediacy and the personal touch.
One more thing I can add. So for the podcast, I recommend talking to ACMi. I mean, they will welcome you to work with them to do a podcast. Yeah.
So on a motion by Mr. Diggins, seconded by Mr. Helmuth, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? A unanimous poet laureate vote. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you in the future.
Wasn't so bad, huh?
Thank you. We now move to licenses and permits. Agenda items 17 or 18 and 18, but we'll take them separately, are from CBS Theaters, Capitol Theater. Jamie Matchin and Ian Judge. Hi, and the first will be a request for approval for a wine and malt alcohol license transfer.
Good evening. My name is Ann Vigorito. I'm the attorney for the applicant. My law office is in Somerville, Massachusetts, and Jamie is sitting next to me, and Ian Judge is behind her.
Good evening, Jamie Mattin.
So we're here this evening. I'm sure everyone in the room is familiar with the Capitol Theater. It's a landmark in its own right. You know, I've raised my children going there for the movies, and I don't live in Arlington, but it's definitely a destination. And Jamie's been a part of the fabric of the Freeman Enterprises for over 20 years. You know, and she's very young. She started it's a great love story for her and her husband, actually. Just to kind of digress, she met her husband while working at the Capitol Theater. They got married here in the Arlington Town Hall, and they have a child, and they live here in Arlington. You know, and they're raising their family here. It's a nice story, and it's nice that she's very close to the business. But back to business, Jamie Matchin, as I said, she has worked for Freeman Enterprises, who's the current owner of the Capitol Theater, for 20 years. And just to give you a little bit more of a background, Freeman Enterprises also owns the Somerville Theater in Davis Square, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. We were before the Somerville Licensing Commission back in January of this year to effectuate a transfer of the Somerville Theater license to Jamie and Ian and their team. So I coined the phrase, it's like when the inmates were running the asylum and they've taken it over. There is nothing different. This group, they've all worked there for well over 20 years. It's the status quo. You know, I do a lot of transfers, and, you know, you'll see in the purchase and sale agreement that, you know, managerial is going to stay on for 3 to 6 months to train. There's no need to train these people. They've been doing it. You know, Mr. Freeman, I've done work for him over the years, and he always has applauded, you know, his managerial staff. You know, Jamie in particular, because she is the operations manager, the liquor license manager here in Arlington, you know, not one blemish on her record. You know, there's no incidents at all, not just, you know, no liquor license violations, no violations. They run a wonderful establishment. You know, they've got the best concessions around, the price point. You know, you can't go to a movie. I mean, during the day, I believe it's $9, and I think it's $13 in the evening. I mean, and it is a destination for people to come to the Capitol Theater. I mean, I know when I've taken my own children, Mom, was this what it's like in the olden days when you grew up? You know, I'm like, it's a little older than that, kids. But, you know, I do feel that, you know, they've preserved it, and they provide such a great service. And to have this opportunity for CSB Theaters to, you know, take it over. They've worked hard, and, you know, they're here this evening with, you know, they do have some letters in support. You know, I don't need to read from them, but I particularly like the one where they talk about that at 54 years old, he gets carded every time he comes in, and I think that's great. You know, it's just, they do it right, and it's status quo. Nothing will change. You know, if you have questions for us, you know, that's what we want to do. We want to answer any questions or concerns this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to say, when I was reading that the Freemans were, you know, had put in their dues, paid their time, and were going to be selling their interest in the Arlington and Somerville Theater. There was a little trepidation, but I said, let's wait to see what falls out and what may happen, and this is the best-case scenario, I feel. And one of the things I will say is, from couple of decades ago, perhaps even back in the 1900s. One of the things that I really appreciated and do appreciate with the Capitol Theater is, as they've expanded in many ways, not just alcohol license, but entertainment and other offerings, established and continue to maintain a really good working relationship with the neighborhood, as well as establishing a communication line, which very rarely is even used nowadays in terms of, concerns that the neighbors might have. But as the business expanded, the Freemans and their managerial team were really good about establishing that. And the good news is, I don't hear anybody saying, oh, I had to contact the Capitol, but I hear them saying, oh, we go there all the time, whether it's for an event, not just for the movies, but for other things. And I know Mr. Hurd had an event there just recently this weekend. But I'm not supposed to talk first because I'm chair, but I did want to interject that. So I'll turn to my colleagues. Mr. Hurd?
Are we entertaining motions on both 17 and 18?
Yeah, but we'll do them separately, if that's
So I'll
okay.
move approval for the transfer of the wine and malt alcohol license, as well as a separate motion for approval of the transfer of the public entertainment license as listed. We're all probably say the same thing. We grew up going to the Capitol Theater. I remember going there. I went to Hardy, so we used to go there after half days and watch Dumb and Dumber there when I was first in the theater. And so that was always a good memory. Now, go back there with the boys. It's fun to walk, like you said, it's fun to walk in and feel like you're stepping into, 30 years ago when I was their age. And I will say, the popcorn my wife always says is the best popcorn anywhere in the world.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
And there's some nights we're just lying in bed and she says, I could really use a Capitol popcorn right now. I know I have to go down, drive across town, find a parking space, which isn't always the easiest thing in that area, but it's definitely a staple in Arlington and, something that we want to help preserve and make sure that the right team is running the business, and I think that's what we have here. So I'm happy to support this and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll second Mr. Hurd's motion, and I want to wish you the best of luck with the operation of the Capitol. And as Mr. Hurd mentioned, I mean, it is great to have the Capitol Theater still going and vibrant in town. I'm able to walk to the theater and with my wife, and we will often see a movie there, and I'm thrilled that you're continuing that tradition, and also the great job that you've done at the Somerville Theater and the Crystal Ballroom as well. So best of luck, and happy to support this, and always enjoy the nostalgic feeling, but with the upgrades that you've made as well when we visit.
Thank you.
Mr. Diggins?
Yes, and I'll say, I'm excited about this too, and much like, the tennis opportunity, to purchase the act that hasn't passed, this is like the workers' version of that, so it's really good to see, you taking over fully. And I do like the collaboration with the Somerville Theater, and living in East Arlington, I will walk, to one or the other. And you can see everything between the two theaters, and having lived in Somerville and Cambridge for a time, and Arlington, just one big community, and so it's good to see that, you are connecting, us with respect to film and other entertainment, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing, though. So I did notice on the application, though, it seems that your review with the health department has been submitted, but I guess we haven't, it hasn't been completed. Does anyone want to speak to that?
We completed it last week, I believe. Everything's been submitted as far, I haven't gotten any questions back yet or anything.
I believe Britton asked for them to come in, and they came, Jamie came in and signed off on everything.
Okay, so we're all set? Okay.
Yeah, as long as they've submitted through the Health and Human Services Department, even if it's not completed, as long as they've started the application or are working with the department, it's fine on our end to continue.
Okay.
Until they receive their food permit, they won't get a license from us. So they work in conjunction.
Okay, great. And I said completed, but according to what I had here, it hadn't been submitted as of the 31st. But you say it has been, so we're all set.
Yes, Britton had reached out last week, and Jamie came right in. It's great. Like I said, Jamie's here in Arlington, so she's just, minutes away at all times.
So we're all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. See no further discussion on this for approval of the wine and malt alcohol license transfer. Motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey, subject to all conditions contained therein. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. And now we have a motion to approve. I don't know if there's anything you want to say on the public entertainment license transfer.
I mean, I would just echo what I previously said, I think, they goes hand in hand. I mean, the entertainment is what the Capitol Theater is all about. I mean, I don't know, you could ask her how many times she saw Minecraft this weekend. That's, I call Jamie when I want to know about movies.
I've spent most of my adult life working at the Capitol Theater, and I really just want to emphasize that I understand how important the Capitol is to the community and how important the community is to us. And I make a concerted effort to participate in community events and to donate to schools. And yesterday we had the really fun 250th Arlington William Dawes extravaganza at the Capitol with 300 people and free ice cream and popcorn. And it was really fun, and it was great to have people just come through and really get a chance to just explore the space without having the movies playing and stuff. So it was cool as you could see the kids just being like, oh, this theater's pretty, or this is big. And, it was really fun. And I think that the Capitol serves a very important purpose, and we try to be affordable entertainment for families, for the senior citizens, and I just want you to know that it's a responsibility that I take very seriously. And this year is actually our 100th year of operation, so it's our centennial this year, and we're planning a bunch of cool stuff. But when we heard that Mr. Freeman was ready to start wrapping things up, it was like, oh, it's the 100th year, and it's my whole life. I can't let this opportunity pass. So I'm putting it all on the line, and I'm invested in the Capitol's future.
Thank you.
That's exciting. And we have a motion to approve by Mr. Hurd. Is there a second by Mr. DeCoursey? Any further questions, comments? If not, on a motion to approve the public entertainment license transfer by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey, subject to all conditions contained there within. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Our thanks.
Thank
Look
you very
forward
much.
to
Thank you
seeing-
Very much.
You look good for 100, so. Now we will have agenda item 19 for approval, all alcohol package store, Arlington Center Fine Wines, LLC.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
And it's my understanding, this is my first night as chair, not that I've never done it before, but we're hearing this license, but am I correct, Attorney Cunningham? I know we have a warrant article and a home rule petition pending, but right now is it 6 alcohol licenses?
Yes, Madam Chair, the applicant has been informed that there are no Section 15 licenses that the board can grant at the present time.
Okay, great.
We want to just, good evening, we want to just take this opportunity just to introduce ourselves, and
Yes.
just to share our business ideas for, what we have in mind for Arlington, and hopefully, we'll be like it in the future, I'm Pietro, this is Chris.
Chris Lianos.
He's the owner of Bosquare Fine Wines. I've been working in the food and wine business in the last 15 years. In the last 5 years, I sell wines for a company in Arlington, Somerville, Lexington, so I know with the back of my hand the liquor and wine business, so I really know every liquor store in Arlington, and I approached Chris, which used to be my former employer, and say, I think we could replicate the success that he had for over 25 years with Bosquare Fine Wines in Arlington, because there's nothing like that. We want to just focus on community wine tasting and so on. And there's really nothing like this in Arlington. I don't know if you want to look at the presentation. I don't know if it's you're interested in looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Do we have it?
Just pull that up.
Just a moment.
Yeah. Thank you. You can move up to slide number 3, please. Thank you. What I meant, unfortunately for Arlington, Ball Square and Berman's Fine Wines, which in my opinion, my professional opinion, are the two best looking and run business in 5 miles radius from Arlington. So I came up with the idea to propose to my business partner, Chris, hey, listen, Arlington Center would be the best place to open up the shop, because I feel like we really fulfill a void, in the Arlington community. Really, there is nothing like that in the town. We come up with this idea. The next slide, it's the proposed location. And Chris really specialized in this expertise to really make very looking attractive stores. Beautiful shelves, tasting station. And you can see a couple of more, next couple of slides, you can see a couple of his former project, Malden Center for Wines that opened up in 2020. Yeah. And the next one was Needham Center for Wines. So we really focusing on, making, good looking stores. Next slide, please. And also it won't be just, wine. A big part of our business will be food. I started in this business as a food. I used to own Maria Sidera and Cold Cuts in Somerville, and then I worked for Chris as gourmet wine manager. So I really know food, not because of my accent, with Beckham hands. Next slide, please. A couple more examples. Olive oil, charcuterie, cheeses by the pound. So it's not going to be just it's just wine and beer, but just food, which also make custom gift baskets or handmade. Next slide, please. We focus also small Jenny's ice cream, anchovies, Belgian chocolate, Grace Note coffees, and again cheeses. Next slide, please. And a couple of our vendors, just very farm. So we don't actually support New England companies, realities. Yeah, next slide, please. Shelburne Farm is another one. It's a big account for us. And then actually, always here, the store does tasting, but we really, the tasting that we do at Ball Square, when I used to part of the crew, it's something that you never believe. You go 50, 60, 70 people, and you do tasting on Friday and Saturdays, and then there's grand event, with alcohol is consumed very responsibly. It's and I don't know if you ever be part of that, but it's something that brings people together. And the next slide, please. And we do know that alcohol comes with the consumption also comes with responsibilities, also owning stores. You have a lot of responsibilities, so the idea would be just to have ID policy. We just say everybody's look younger than 35. We have scan ID. We have closed circuit television with the medical alarms. We have tips, serve safe, and the last two are wine classes and beer classes for free of charge of our employees, because in order to offer a better service to our customer. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
I think the purpose, if I may speak.
Certainly.
I think the purpose for us here today, like Pietro said, was just to introduce ourselves and let you know who we are. As two hardworking people who've been in the industry for a long time. I myself started in 1989 when I was 19 years old. My mother and I bought a house in Arlington Heights, on Robbins Road. She was a hairdresser, and I was a grocery bagger at Star Market in Cambridge. And just took a lot of work. And in 1994, I opened up my first wine shop in Waltham, West End Beer and Wine. And I took those years of experience, and in 2000, I opened up Ball Square Fine Wines. No partners. Well, my mother.
She's the boss.
She was there. There was no financial support, but she was behind me through all the emotional stress. And so Ball Square has received 3 Best of Boston awards. 2 of them for Best Wine Shop, the third one for craft spirits. You know, we do a lot of aperitifs, digestifs. It was the first Best of Boston award to be given to a retail store for craft spirits. This year in January, Boston Globe wrote an article about Ball Square for having one of the best non-alcoholic selections. You know, the reporter came, they took pictures of a beautiful window display that my wife very proudly handles, and it was dry January. As we know, that there's an increase in business, so we always try to find ways to attract more people. You know, what we do in the stores that are different than other stores, I'm there every day. I open the store at 9 a.m., and I do it six days a week. I do have a family, I have a young family, but I'm there because I love doing it. And it's a community store. Why? Because, you know, I pay attention to the customers, but also to the people that I hire. I've got to learn in the 31 years in the business that customers and employees are equally the same to me. So you need to, you know, because if you're not there, who's going to take care of your customer? You know, so Friday nights we have a wine tasting. It's a big community gathering. We have food pairings with the tastings, and Saturdays are spirits and beer. Every weekend we send a newsletter out from a wine buyer who does a great job, and it attracts a lot of local people. They love what we do because we bring different wines every week. There's always a story behind the product, and they always come back, and I hear the same compliments. How we do it. How do you do it, Chris? How you find great people to work for you, and how you always keep the product fresh and different. The store, yeah.
You also mentioned many people, many Arlington residents want you to bring like
Yes, definitely. The store is big in food too, so we have a big gourmet section that we not only sell prepackaged products, but we sell also weighted items from meats. And we have our own menu of cheese platters where people can choose with 8, 9, 10 different varieties of themes from small, medium, and large. We have gift baskets that my wife makes, custom make, that we take orders for those, and that's very busy around the holiday seasons, but you can find one every day you walk in there. In 2012, I was given the first license in Needham. Needham was dry, and I was able to open up the first wine shop and basically did exactly the same thing I'm doing in Somerville. The selecting, of course, they were very picky about who we're going to give the license to. There were many, many applicants, and only 4 out of the 15 received 4 full liquor licenses and 1 beer and wine. They came to the store, they participated in the evening events, they saw the food, they met the staff, and I think part of that was the award for giving me that full liquor license next to the town hall of Needham on Great Plain Ave. And in 2020, I did the same thing in Malden. The beautiful store came out just beautiful, and that was the only liquor license left that the city gave it to me after they knocked down the whole city hall. They built a new building, and they gave it right across from the new city hall, connecting with the footbridge. And they loved what we did there, mostly because we kept it very eclectic, elegant, no bud signs, no nips, no cigarettes. It's just products that just unique products, you know. And it's not a high-end shop. I mean, a lot of people will come in and look at it and feel like, no, of course we have wines. We have the bins, which is wines under $10, that are great wines selected by the staff. And they constantly, every month, we update the wines of the month, which are always new, fresh wines that people receive discounts when they purchase 1 bottle of wine. We have a great 6 for $66 program that we ship out 6 bottles of wine. And we used to do deliveries, but now it's just pickup only. And like, so I sold Needham and Malden, just to focus a little bit more to my young family. And I decided to spend more time in Somerville because I love the community and I'm a people's person. That's what I know what to do, is work. And Pietro, who worked for me, really the last couple of years, he's been asking to come to Arlington. Last year. A year and a half. And to do exactly what I do in Somerville over here, with him being a partner and him being in the store every day. And I wouldn't thought of doing this again, at 57. I mean, I'm still young and I still have good energy, but, things do change in people's lives. But knowing Pietro and how he is, and his work ethics, he's a family man, he lives close by, I said, fine, let's go ahead and see what we can do. I do have a lot of Arlington customers who come in the store and shop. We do deliver in Arlington. We have our own van. And then we found out that Monotony closed, and that's when I said, let's go ahead and see if this can be a possibility. And for me, besides finding the right partner, is finding the right location and having a good relationship with the landlord too, because that kind of all works together. If you have a good landlord that can support your business and believes what you do, then the rest is pretty, you can put your hard work in it to make sure you achieve your goals. There's a lot of things that we do in the store that I think I'm forgetting, but I think what we wanted to do here tonight was just basically say hi. And,
Thank you.
I'll jump in here.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Tyler Hensler. I'm an attorney. Do you need me to sit?
Yes.
You just need to be on the mic.
Sure.
It's just for the microphone to pick it up on.
I'll be brief. So in normal circumstances, I, as the attorney, would take the lead here, but like the Section 12 transfer you just saw, but seeing as there's not currently any Section 15 licenses, we thought you could hear from the owners, meet them, hear their ideas, and see that they're hard workers. I will add, just for the board's benefit, that there is a public need for this license. As you heard, there's a lack of elevated, fine wine-centric stores, and they would fill that need. And their character and fitness as operators is exemplary. They have a sterling track record. So we've submitted this application pending the availability of a license, and with that, we are happy to take any questions from the board. And I'll give it back to Chris, because he's the one you want to hear from.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Attorney Cunningham, did you have anything? I think what we're doing here tonight, since there right now currently isn't a license available, is to receive the information that we just had received. Attorney Cunningham.
Madam Chair, I would recommend that the board take a vote on the application, in this case, without option to deny it because of the lack of availability of a Section 15 license. That would not prohibit or preclude the applicant from, applying in the future to this board if a license has become available. But I would recommend that the board take that course at this point.
And with that, I'll turn to my colleagues for any questions or comments or motions. Mr. Hurd?
I would just say, Pietro, you didn't mention that you do have some Arlington experience. You helped my father-in-law start East Side Deli.
I
can attest that Pietro is a very good cook. So
You made me do all the work.
Mr.
Did you make a
Jenkins?
motion?
I'll move to deny the application as described by Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. Jenkins?
I got a second?
Mr. Helmuth will second. Any questions, comments? Do appreciate you coming in tonight. Do appreciate your passion. I feel like I could walk in the store and find at least half the things that you spoke about. Look forward to probably seeing you in the future, and thank you to your attorney also for attending. And with that, any further questions and comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will go to citizens' open forum. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter presented for consideration of the board shall neither be acted upon nor decision made the night of the presentation in accordance with the policy under which the open forum was established, and it should be noted that there is a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request. So first I'll look to see if there's anyone here in the chambers, and then I'll see if there's anyone out there on Zoom that would like to speak. And if you do, if you're sitting at home on Zoom, just use your raise hand feature if you'd like to speak under Citizens Open Forum. Hi, stranger, name for the record.
Good evening.
Hi, Amy.
My name's Amy Spear, resident at 118 Ridge Street. I also happen to be a member of Zero Waste Arlington Committee, but I speak here tonight as a resident, not as an official committee member. And I'd like to address your vote tonight about the trash cart size. There is a direct correlation between the amount of trash that each household puts on the curb and the amount of money that the town spends for its disposal. In fact, over the past 5 years, Arlington's waste disposal costs have steadily increased, yet our tonnage has been decreasing. With your vote tonight, you have an opportunity to shape the future and put us on a path towards lowering our waste to help counter those rising costs of hauling our trash. The town will save $500,000 if 35-gallon trash carts are selected over the 64-gallon carts, a huge savings in a time when we need to cut costs and trim costs, and I know each of you can think of other ways that that money could be spent. According to the curbside audit that was done, 43% of households have already have that 35-gallon bin, meaning close to half of those households would experience no change whatsoever. And of the 57 remainder, with larger carts, they may not actually need those larger carts, as that audit leaves a few questions. It's unclear whether those, since lids weren't lifted, it's unclear whether those carts are actually full or how often they're put to the curb. In my family of 2, we put the trash out once a month. A friend of mine's family of 4 puts it out twice a month, and we have 35-gallon carts. It would work just fine, a 35-gallon cart, for both of our families, and according to Mass DEP, in 2023, Arlington households average about 24 pounds of trash per week, where a 35-gallon bin can accommodate 120 pounds, so it would certainly suffice. The smaller carts would also encourage households to seek waste diversion methods like recycling and composting. The North Andover Waste Facility, where our waste is sent, reports that 23% of materials there are recyclable materials, and 38% are organic materials, all of which could be diverted from the waste stream. And with the rollout of the new carts, we have a really great opportunity to educate residents on all of these diversion methods and create better habits. So Zero Waste Arlington Committee later on this spring will be presenting to town meeting a zero waste plan for the town. And one of the purposes of that plan is to identify ways for Arlingtonians to reduce their waste. And we, as a committee, I can speak for myself, I know I would happily help with education of reducing those waste habits and any rollout of the carts. So tonight, I urge you to vote for that 35-gallon trash cart to encourage future behavior that we need to continue our already established environmental leadership. It's the fiscally responsible choice. It is the environmentally responsible choice. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jim Ballin, 30 Swan Place, a longtime resident of Arlington. I am a town meeting member. I'm a co-chair of Zero Waste Arlington. I am speaking tonight in my personal capacity. I just want to reiterate what Amy just said, some points about why I strongly advocate for your decision to go with the 35-gallon carts tonight. And obviously, from a point of Zero Waste Arlington, which, by the way, would have, if we had time to convene a meeting, would have had a formal opinion on this, but we were not able to convene in time. But as a member of that group, I do strongly support waste reduction in Arlington, sustainable environmental practices. But what I want to actually address with you in just the minute or two I have is more of a fiscal comment, or two comments. One is just to reiterate, again, what Amy said about the cost difference between the 35 and the 65. Not only is the 65 obviously an additional $150,000 in cost, but the $350,000 DEP grant is substantial money, and that's free money for the town. And I think that's a huge bonus that we should not just overlook, just for the sake of a larger size bin, which I will advocate that most town residents don't need or don't want. So the first point I would make is, yes, I think there's a lot of money that would be thrown away if we make the decision to go with the larger cart. The second point I just want to make is more about a fairness issue as an Arlington taxpayer. A family of five for the last 30 years in Arlington, we've had a 20-gallon trash barrel for disposing of our trash every week. Most weeks we have one 13-gallon trash bag that goes out in that 20-gallon container. In the very rare situation where I need more than that, I would be more than happy to pay for that. So I think from a fairness perspective, the baseline for all Arlington residents, which again, I believe the majority of people would be happy with and would meet their needs, is the 35-gallon trash container. And I think that would provide all the capacity that anyone would really need. And so again, as a fairness issue, I don't want to subsidize people who don't follow waste reduction practices. And I would just say how I get to that 13-gallon trash bag each week is basically by doing the things that I think everyone in Arlington should be doing. We recycle everything that the town allows us to recycle. We compost in our backyard. We take things to the Arlington Recycling Center for things that are difficult, more difficult items to recycle. We're conscious of packaging when we buy products. I think the people who want a 65-gallon trash container are the people who are not willing to put in that level, or even a minimal effort. I think if you're recycling, you're not going to need a 65-gallon trash container. So again,
Okay.
I don't want to.
Last sentence, go ahead, sorry.
I don't want to subsidize people who don't want to take those steps to meet what I consider minimal practices for sustainable trash disposal. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Seeing no one else in the chambers, anyone on Zoom? Okay, no one else for citizens open forum. With that, it's closed. We will now go to, how fortuitous, agenda item 21, Mr. Feeney.
Thank you. I'm just going to move these into view.
You know, honest to goodness, didn't see them there till he just started walking toward. Shows you how been focused right there.
Madam Chair, I'm disappointed that you didn't take the opportunity to announce that we were now going to talk trash.
I was expecting the town manager to pop out of one of those.
Hit the 96. Thank you, board members. I'm going to pull up some slides here as well in a moment. All right, so first I want to acknowledge DPW Director Mike Rademacher for his work putting these slides together. He is unable to be present this evening as he is attending the American Council of Engineering Companies 2025 Awards Gala. So the new DPW facility that was designed by Weston and Sampson is actually receiving an Engineering Excellence Award. So I encouraged Mike and some other members from the team to avail themselves of the opportunity to attend the awards gala tonight. So I will sort of take us through this discussion this evening, but I do want to note that joining me this evening is Charlotte Milan, whom you all know as the town's recycling coordinator, who did a lot of the legwork out in the field to provide the information that we have to share with the board this evening. So by way of background, as the board knows, I am seeking the board's input this evening on a very important topic, as Mr. Helmuth noted, trash cans. So as the board is aware, the town has undertaken a competitive RFP process to enter into a new solid waste collection contract for the next 5 years. In doing so, it has become abundantly clear that we need to pursue what is known as containerization, or a switch to automated trash and recycling toter collection in order to maintain some degree of program affordability. Back in the fall of 2023, given shifts in the industry being seen by other municipalities, it was expected that we may need to head in this direction, and a capital budget request was made at that time to plan for the purchase of trash and recycling toters for all households in Arlington. The request at the time was premised on purchasing 32-gallon trash carts and 64-gallon trash carts, as both would qualify for grants to offset the initial investment cost. And the funding level, or the level of funding, was established in accordance with that request. However, from my perspective, I view curbside trash and recycling collection as one of the town's sort of core and foundational municipal services, akin to maintaining our roads or providing water and sewer services. This is because it impacts each and every household, each and every week. So given the importance and reach of this high visibility service, trash and recycling is something, as we've heard this evening, our residents are quite passionate about. As such, I did not want to make such an important decision about the size of the trash cans we will provide to our residents in a vacuum and without consulting the board. So, and that is in part because this decision represents a much larger policy decision, as it will establish what I'll call a new baseline level of service that will be provided to the community. And any additional service beyond that level of service will move us in a direction of what I will call pay-as-you-throw more or pay-as-you-throw extra, where residents will need to pay for additional quantities disposed of beyond that which fits in the equipment provided by the town, as that will be the equipment that is collected curbside by an automated vehicle moving forward as of July 1. Of course, it needs to be acknowledged that such a policy decision has political implications, especially as the solid waste budget was one of the board's defined commitments during the override of 2023, and this forward-looking decision could conceivably have an impact on the override plan for 2026. So we will go through some additional information via way of slides now, but I welcome and value the board's input, and I intend to follow the will of the board with respect to purchasing, we'll call, the right size trash toter, though I will fully acknowledge here that there is not necessarily a right answer, as one size truly does not fit all here. So again, this is for fiscal year 26, when our new trash contract will take effect. And with that said, while we're going to speak tonight to the size of the trash can that we should select, that is due to lead times with getting these produced and disseminated, delivered to every household in Arlington, which is the next domino to fall with regard to ironing out the details of our new trash contract. And I would expect to have, if not one, perhaps two more opportunities to present to this board in the next month or so about other details, and even once we have a new contract, to invite whomever that hauler is to speak to the program and the details of that program moving forward. But tonight, we'll talk about trash carts. To take a step back, why containerization? I mentioned this previously, but automated curbside collection offers significant cost savings. In our case, it will amount to at least 40%, or roughly $10 million over the life of the contract. And that's not necessarily controlling for what will be future prevailing wage rates that we do not yet know about, because the state has not issued them for years 4 or 5 of what will be our contract. And that impact is significant because an automated collection truck has one employee, whereby a manual collection truck has a driver and 2 laborers on the back. So those prevailing wage increases are particularly expensive for a manual curbside collection program. Obviously, there are some secondary benefits as well listed here. It gives us the opportunity to provide all of our residents with a ruggedized trash and recycling cart, and we will provide cart maintenance services for those residents. I'll admit I've heard good things about the prospect of providing trash cans to our residents, namely the fact that it is apparently very challenging to go find one and find a way to get it home, because it may not fit in people's vehicles. You know, though the models shown in front of you this evening are sort of gray and not customized, what we would see curbside would provide a uniform aesthetic. You'd likely see what's called a cobalt blue recycling toter with, you know, the town seal, likely with the recycling symbol inside the town seal. And then for the trash toter, we would err towards a much darker color, probably a darker gray, and that would be emblazoned with the town seal on both the left and right sides. And then there would be some writing on the lid as to which way to face the cart to the street and whether it was for trash only or recycling only. So there will be a uniform aesthetic at the curb, which of course means less bags on the ground and barrels without lids, which will reduce rodent and wildlife attraction. Recyclables placed in carts with lids will reduce the amount of recyclable litter on windy days, which we see from those open-top blue cart containers can be subject to you know, themselves being blown around, but also the materials coming out of the cart as they're lightweight. And then recyclables placed in carts with lids will significantly reduce weight added to the waste stream by rainwater. Admittedly, not something we've had to concern ourselves with before because our prior contract insulated us from the costs associated with processing single stream recycling. However, in our new contract, that will no longer be the case, and we will have to pay to process our single stream recycling, and that is also processed by ton, as is trash. So the weight of our recycling will matter moving forward. So, and again, I want to acknowledge Charlotte and Jackie in the Department of Public Works for conducting a curbside container audit, or a bit of a snapshot in time of what some of the equipment that's currently being deployed curbside by our resident. The parameters, this was conducted February 26th through Tuesday, March 4th. We looked at addresses from each of our 5 daily trash routes, and we'll show some maps shortly. We were primarily looking at single and 2-family addresses. Overall, approximately 1,400 households were observed, and observations were estimated according to the equipment that was placed out on the curb, which is a challenging exercise when barrels of different manufacturers are of different gallon numbers, bins are of different shapes, bags are different sizes, you have boxes, some things piled loosely, so it really is not a very cut and dry exercise to know exactly what the amount of refuse was that was placed curbside by a household. And as noted previously, no lids were lifted to confirm the volume of trash or recycling inside containers. We sort of had to operate with the assumption that, you know, the container that a household purchased was presumably the container that served well their needs, understanding that trash volumes fluctuate by week, but also if you were to visit the local hardware store or the local Home Depot, the trash carts are available anywhere from 20, 32, 35, 40, 44, 45, 50, 64. You can really choose from any assortment of trash cart sizes, so that helped us feel comfortable assuming that if a resident purchased a cart or a barrel, that was likely the barrel that they thought best suited their household needs. And Our observations were centered on the potential impact of providing 35-gallon carts, which had been the subject of the prior capital budget request and town meeting appropriation. So we'll run through here. You'll see Monday's trash route. What is highlighted are the streets where the audit was conducted. And this is just to demonstrate that, of course, we were not able to hit every household in Arlington. We really did try to spread ourselves across town and deliver a representative sample for the board and to gain a better understanding of where things stood. On Tuesday, here are the streets that were hit. Here's Wednesday's route and the areas of town that were provided for. Here is Thursday's route in East Arlington. And then here is Friday's route over by the reservoir. So the yellow areas are those, again, that were the subject of our curbside audit. So again, approximately 1,400 households were observed, and you can see clearly there is a fairly even split given the distribution between households that put out 35 or less gallons of trash on that given week and those that put out over 35 gallons of trash. So 42.8% put out 35 or less gallons of trash, and 57.2% put out over 35 gallons of trash. Now we'll talk dollars and cents briefly. So this chart shows what the cost each of the carts is. So they're roughly, as you go up through the sizes, whether it be 35, the smallest, 45, the middle size, and 65 is the largest. They increase by about $5 per cart in the initial cost. But wherein the significant difference in the overall cost to the community lies is with this grant that's available to the town through the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, whereby if we chose the 35-gallon trash cart, we would be afforded the opportunity of an upwards of $350,000 grant to support that initial investment. So moving ahead to the next slide, which sort of zooms in on the trash cart calculations, if you skip to the bottom line, and you'll see that the sort of line before that controls for the Mass DEP grant, which again is only available for the 35-gallon cart. The total costs associated with the various different purchases are $294,800 for a 35-gallon cart, $724,800 for a 45-gallon cart, and $796,800 for a 65-gallon cart. So we also, did some research and called around to communities who have made similar decisions previously, just to provide some additional context or background for the board to consider. The first group of communities in those below, we tried to focus on what we know to be our comparable communities that we know as the Town Manager 12, or those which are neighboring communities. We thought that those would be the best comps for the board to consider, and as you can see on the presentation here, there is no uniform decision that has been made by other communities who are similarly situated with having to determine which carts to purchase. So, a number of communities went with 64-gallon trash carts, while a number of other communities have, if they were a purely pay-as-you-throw community, offered residents the opportunity to choose a cart size because they were going to be paying for whatever cart size they chose, or our neighbor in Cambridge, who is not a pay-as-you-throw community, who chose a 45-gallon container. So you can see there are communities that have chosen containers really of every size that are available. You'll note, and we're not necessarily focusing our discussion on recycling here this evening because we are already locked in to receive a grant from the Recycling Partnership for our recycling carts, and the requirement for that grant is that they be 64 gallons, and that we sort of universally have been determined that that is the right size, especially with recycling now all needing to fit into the same cart. So no more sort of box of boxes, as we say, sort of riding sideboard to, a recycling cart or bin. It's all going to need to go into one container. And of course, we want to encourage as much recycling as possible. So a larger recycling cart, and with the cost of the grant, that made sense. So there really wasn't much consideration to be had there. The only other consideration you may make is to go to a 96-gallon cart if you were to do bi-weekly recycling. But as we all know, Arlington is a community that values its recycling and does so to a very great extent. So we felt that providing the opportunity for weekly recycling was a priority for the town of Arlington. So that lends itself to a 64-gallon cart. And now I'll turn it over to Charlotte for just a moment, if you want to take a seat in front of the mic, just to speak to some of the, just to use the opportunity to highlight some of our additional diversion programs as they exist, in addition to our curbside collection program.
Thank you. Charlotte Milan, Recycling Coordinator at Public Works. Thank you for allowing me to speak. We've been working for years now to really try to help people reach what we think of as what was coming down the road, which is Mass Department of Environmental Protection creates a solid waste master plan that is requiring that all communities and all waste producers, which is every business and every institution in the state, work to reduce waste. This is because we have a ever depleting or ever decreasing way to manage our trash in the state. We can't build new incinerators by state law, and we don't really have any more landfills other than ash landfills, which is where our incinerated trash goes to once it's been incinerated. So with that in mind, the Mass Department of Environmental Protection has done a great job of incentivizing communities to do various activities by providing grant funding that is required to be used on waste reduction activities. With some of that money, we've been able to experiment and really build a reuse and recycling center, which is now located at 33 Ryder Street, where we collect a lot of heavy things and a lot of harder to recycle things. This is voluntary for the most part. There are some things that are banned by the state that we may have to otherwise have picked up at the curb, which can be for a fee. We also offer people the chance to drop off for a fee, and actually a lot of items are dropped off for free. We don't charge for scrap metal, and we don't charge for most electronic waste. We collect bulky trash items, things that may not even be heavy, like we actually collect styrofoam. But they're very bulky, and we knew that at some point that was going to become an issue. If you buy a large piece of furniture, even if it could take you 3 or 4 or 5 contractor-sized bags to fit that styrofoam in them, with no weight, but with a lot of volume. So that's important to collect. And then there's been an increase in the number of banned items by the state law, including mattresses and textiles. So we want to make that really convenient for residents to be able to comply with those new waste ban laws. And mattresses that was a tough move for everybody in the state. We can have them picked up at the curb, but for some people, having that convenience of dropping them off if you need to move quickly or your schedule is better with dropping off of mattresses has been very popular. And then, as has been mentioned by lots of people, our food scraps are the heaviest part of our trash. It's also really such a shame from an environmental perspective to transport our wet food waste 30 miles to be incinerated, which of course isn't an effective use of our incinerator, and our incinerator is generating electricity. So what we really love to do as a state is remove those food scraps. And there are laws that require food scraps be banned, but right now that's at the level of producers that create food scraps above a half ton per week, which is really large, pretty large institutions.
But the state is working to create the capacity for food scraps to be managed either into compost or into methane gas through anaerobic digestion by building those, that capacity so that the state can help move more residential level food scraps into higher use places. Right now, that's financially expensive for the town. So we are offering as much as we can to incentivize people to do it on their own, including backyard composting, which is still popular. We have a food scrap drop-off program, which is free and great for people to try out. And then we have the food scrap subscription services that have become popular, and we thank residents by providing them some equipment and opportunity to participate in that, which we really appreciate. The 10 to 15% of households that are already voluntarily paying to have their food scraps composted. Is there anything else you wanted me to mention?
No, thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I guess one thing I'm realizing that wasn't touched upon in the slides is that Arlington currently has a, what I'll call a 99-gallon trash limit. Of course, we're not yet containerized, so that maybe makes it a bit less practical or easily enforceable because, there isn't uniform equipment being placed curbside. People can put out some combination of boxes, bin, bags, et cetera. But that would be, if there were a question or concern, that would be the trash limit that we currently have on the books for enforcement. And the program we're looking at moving forward is the town would pay for and provide a trash cart to every household, and that is the trash cart that would be placed curbside for collection each week. And then if residents had, occasional surge trash, they could purchase, what we'll call an orange bag. We don't know what color it would be, but that's the color of the bags used by the commercial curbside program for sort of weekly collection. That bag would be purchased at a fee, or a resident could elect to get a second trash container for an annual fee. To an extent, that fee still has to be determined because it would be based on whatever the size of that container would be. But if I had to estimate, it would likely be in the order of magnitude of between $150 to $175 annually for a second trash cart. So with that, I'll open it up to questions from the board.
Mr. Hurd?
What are the sizes of these three barrels?
So the barrel that is closest to me is 35 gallons. The next barrel in the middle is 45 gallons, and then the next barrel after that is 65 gallons.
Mr. Diggins? Oh, Mr. Hellman.
And then I'll go after him. No, I was pointing at you because I saw you, and then I'll go after you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to run this by, since we're starting the new contract, but in the recycling side, that are we confident that in terms of, given the recycling market and this nature of the stream these days, that single stream is still the best investment to make rather than a separated stream in terms of our value for, the cost maximum cost savings we get for recycling?
Though I don't have a specific analysis to present to you this evening, Mr. Helmuth, that is correct, because largely collection will be based now on the number of carts serviced. And given the number of additional carts that would have to be purchased and serviced on an ongoing basis, that cost would outweigh the processing cost of what is, less than 5,000 tons of recycling annually.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. And so so we understand how this would work then, when you start talking about servicing, that would be that we'd be giving people one of these size of carts, and if they break or if they get damaged by the wind, the town would replace that?
Yes, we would own the equipment and maintain it. These have a warranty for 10 years.
And with the sort of the overage, like if we went with a smaller container and people needed more than that, either on occasion, which would be, I could see that happening for a few folks, quite a few folks, and some people might need it on a permanent basis. Can we do a program where we have orange bags for overflow, you know, a pay-as-you-throw bag? Or they could do the whole annual extra container, or is it kind of be one of the other programs that we would have?
It could be one, the other, or both.
Okay, so there's flexibility there?
Yes.
Okay. I have some thoughts to share, but those are the extent of my questions, Madam Chair, so maybe we, I don't know when you want to sort of start debate rather, but I wanted to give my colleagues a chance to ask
I
questions.
guess we'll start with questions, and
Yeah,
then we'll go.
sure.
Mr. Diggins, and then.
Sure, thanks. I do like the fact that you can get an extra card if you want. That's more of a thought, but it was going to be a question that you've answered. The repair rates, do you have a sense of how sturdy these are? Like, are we going to be spending a lot of effort repairing them, you think?
So what has been relayed to us, Mr. Diggins, from vendors is that we are unlikely to need to make many repairs within the first 3 years. But really, these are very ruggedized and well-built containers. I can speak to the fact that the ones here this evening, where, you know, the vendor that we feel will best serve the town of Arlington, their carts are being deployed in New York City and in neighboring Cambridge, and for all intents and purposes, they have held up well. But the what you see is the lids, and then potentially the axle between the wheels are very replaceable parts, and we would have appointments that we would book for residents once a week where they could, you know, go online, choose a calendar option for a time that works for them, and someone will show up at their house and swap out the lid or replace the wheels. But it is not expected to be a significant cost or level of effort, given their durability.
Great. So then we'll have the capacity, staff capacity to do it within our current budget.
We would do so via a contract with our waste hauler.
Okay, got it, understood, with respect to the 57-43 split, between those who use more than I guess it's 65, or whatever, 35. Was that uniform across town?
I would defer to Charlotte if she has any insights as to whether or not there was any geographic distribution to the different routes, and if certain areas of town weighted more heavily towards less than 35 or more than 35.
During the brief time that we did look, there was some variability, but there was no way to predict what that was. I don't even recall which days of the week it was. And one of the things I'd love to be able to explain to you about the map is that when you do these kinds of surveys, you have to hit a street when neither the trash nor the recycling has been taken yet.
Right.
That's why it looks like that, why we can't get a nice, every other street, because the trash, 3 trash and 3 recycle trucks start on each day of the week. And we have to find the places they haven't gotten to yet. So that's why it looks that way. It would have taken many, many more weeks to cover a lot of streets. And probably even collaboration with the hauler to tell them to stop doing this area so we can see it before it gets picked up.
But that was not an option. We never want to slow them down or have them not pick up.
So, sorry, I don't have more specific information about that.
Yeah, no problem. It was more of a curiosity question than anything else, so, I know where I'm going on this, and so, especially since you can, get an extra small container, because the big one, it's volume versus weight. I think, for some of us, it's going to be the volume issue. And I put a lot of effort into trying to get all of my waste into as small a volume as possible, just because it's kind of fun to do it, and to just kind of go out with one little bag, but it's just kind of compacted with stuff, and so. But a lot of people won't have that option, for whatever reason, and so and sometimes the shapes of things can make it hard, to put a certain volume in it, and so you just kind of want to be cognizant of that. But if you can get an extra container, and it seems like it's a reasonable cost, I'd much prefer to haul out 2 small containers versus a large one, but I think I'm giving it away too much, so
Yeah,
I'll stop.
It's only supposed to be questions,
Questions, yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Diggins.
Sorry,
Did you have another question before I ask, yes, if that's all right, Mr. Hurd?
In a comment that won't violate the question.
It's just, I saw.
I don't want to slow down trash
I
pickup, but if you
voluntarily
can
stopped
have them
myself.
specifically not come to my house first every Friday, because I'm usually running out in my underwear,
To get the container out?
trash barrels out, but, I'll ask Ms. Feeney if you can recall this information from, we met with a consultant that we had about a year ago, and I think, the purpose of the consultant was to help us, come up with a new program that worked for the town, but also one that, met goals to reduce, solid waste. And they provided us with some statistics with, what is the target amount of waste for a community of our size. And my recollection is based on the statistics that they gave us, the current amount that we, per household of trash that we do in our current system was at the target. Is that correct? Are you bringing, is this information coming back to anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. What I recall, and Charlotte is more well-versed in the details or statistics than I, is that Arlington, as a waste producer, is already among one of the most exemplary communities in the state with regard to the weight of trash that is produced per household in our community. And I think that is the data that you're referring to in terms of the weight per household is already amongst the best in the state. Perhaps Arlington and Newton are the ones that sort of stick out to me when recalling what that presentation demonstrated in terms of how we've already made a lot of progress in sort of waste reduction.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify a little bit, Mr. Feeney, regardless of what size barrel or container that we may come to a consensus for the board. And that's going back to what we offer now. And you mentioned 99 gallons. The Zero Waste Arlington Guide says it's 100 gallons, roughly 3 32-gallon barrels. So right now, no matter what container we choose, it is going to be a reduction in terms of what people will throw out that the town will pick up, no matter what size.
Yep, by a minimum of a third.
Yeah, okay. And really, in my neighborhood, and I see this 100-gallon limit, it seems to me that it's 2 barrels and maybe a bag as well as what you get right now, because the barrels aren't uniform. So I just want to clarify that, depending on where we go. Second, if we go forward and a household has extra items and they don't have a container, but they have a bag, I think you'd mentioned that there might be an additional cost from the hauler to pick up that bag because it won't be part of the being able to lift it from the truck without getting out of the truck. Is that right?
That is correct. So an overflow bag would have to be, or would likely be, a town manufactured bag that you would buy at the hardware store or the grocery store, and you might pay, $3 for that bag. That's going to cover the cost of the bag itself, but then the cost of the driver actually having to exit the vehicle and go and place it into the hopper. So the cost of that bag to the resident would be calculated to cover the cost that the town would bear, as well as the cost for the bag itself.
Okay, all right. And then the other question I have for what you're looking at is the potential new contract. Is it more if there are multiple barrels? So if the truck pulls up to a house, is it the same cost to the town if they're lifting 2 barrels or 1?
So our contract with the new waste hauler is going to be for a set number of carts. The truck does not care what size those carts are. So we will have a set number of carts, and that's why the deployment of additional carts, there would be a cost to the town calculated monthly by the hauler, for rough numbers, call it maybe $10 a month per cart for the hauler. So, $120 a year that the town would bear as a cost for servicing that cart curbside. And then we would factor in, based on the size of that cart and how full it is likely to be, the weight of that trash inside the container, so that we could then recover some measure of the disposal cost of that extra waste. So those two factors would combine to arrive at what we think is a realistic or reasonable number for the cost of servicing that second cart. But the number of carts does equate to additional cost for the town.
Okay, and just the last question, just thinking about options. The DEP grant assumes that it's only going to be one cart per household. In other words, you can't have a program where you have the grant for the 35-gallon container, but if you had a second 35-gallon container, is there any disqualifying features to the grant program? In other words, if you're buying multiple containers, do you somehow lose out on part of that grant?
There would be no disqualifying feature, Mr. DeCoursey. It just sets for any additional container, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charlotte, that the Mass DEP sets a floor on what the cost of that second container should be, so that it accounts for what would be the cost of disposing for at least one additional overflow bag per week. So if, say, an overflow bag was going to be $3, that you couldn't have an additional cart cost be any less than that $3 times 52 weeks per year. So it does, the grant does require that you can't just use the grant to purchase additional carts for households to not necessarily meet the waste reduction goals that Mass DEP is targeting.
Okay, thank you.
And all my questions that are appropriate to be asked tonight have been asked and answered, so I'm not going to ask you to repeat anything you said. I do have questions when we have this on for a second and/or third agenda night. So with that, I will turn to my colleagues for any comments, motions, or whatever is your pleasure.
Holmes?
Has that been nominated?
No.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I look forward to comments from my other colleagues. This is not a clear-cut decision. And I am right now, subject to listening to my other friends here on the board, I have landed in a different place than I expected from where I started. I think the data collection, and kudos to Ms. Milan and her crew, is very helpful and a little surprising in that, I understand that the limitations in the data collection, but if we think at least 43% plausibly are already using a smaller size, and that could well be more than that because we don't know how much of that capacity was unused, and we know how much was empty. If it was my household, it would definitely be empty, We don't know how often they were putting the trash out. So that's probably higher, but that's a lot of people who already only need the smallest size. I'm very aware that we are heading into an override season, and I'm really conscious about how voters would approach a change in our trash policy. It has been not unlimited. We have a very high 99 gallon, depending on your source, limit. But I'm going to propose that we ask the town manager to start with 35 gallon. And I think there's a couple of ways to think about that. I think that some residents could look at our coming back and asking for an override, and also asking them if they need extra capacity to pay, $12 to $15 more a month, if they need that capacity every week. That people could be unhappy about that. I also think that other people in the town who don't need that capacity, and if we go and ask, and we're going to go out and ask them, to help us maintain level services by funding an override, as we have to do because of the structural deficit, Other people in that 43+% who don't need the capacity could ask us, why are you spending more on trash to subsidize households that need more? They might say, think about water as a utility. We don't, I pay what I use. I don't pay for what my neighbors use. And I think the voters will hold us accountable for good fiscal management, but also good services to residents. And I think that's the balance, right? I care very much about providing the level of services that residents expect, but I also care that the residents expect us to make good money decisions. And the difference between the small one and the big one as a baseline is about $500,000 in this first contract, in this first rollout because of the grant. The difference between the small and the middle is still about $430,000. And it's difficult for me to think about telling residents that we'll spend that on overcapacity for 43% plus residents. That's really, and that's what changed my view on where I thought I was going to land on this, is really fiscal responsibility in that regard, combined with one other thing, and that is that although Arlington's trash disposal rate is admirably low and our recycling rate is good, we believe, and we have reason to believe, we could do better. And I know that our friends in the Zero Waste Arlington Committee, which is one of our most growing and enthusiastic and creative committees, continue to work to help residents do better. And I think that reflects the town Arlington is becoming. But Arlington wants to be a leader in a lot of ways. Arlington wants to be at the vanguard. And I think it's reasonable to believe that 43%, if that number is right, is going to grow over the years naturally because people are already diverting waste from the stream. And that's a direction, I think, of a town where people just want to do better and will appreciate leadership that says, we're going to give you just a little push to do better. But if you need to throw away more, it's not going to break the bank, $12 to $15 a month for most households. If, on the other hand, we go with the big container, I'd probably need, in my two-person household, I need to use that about once a month. I recognize there are larger households. That's absolutely a reality. I'm not unaware of what we would be asking larger households to do. But if we set that as the baseline, that locks in a large size for the baseline. And that's a different direction than I believe that most residents want to go with our solid waste. It's a different trajectory. So that for me, that tips it. I could listen to a compelling argument from another one of my colleagues and maybe moderate that, but I think that's where I'm heading right now. I'm certainly not going to make motions until we hear from other people.
Mr. Hurd?
I'm gonna try to say this without getting mad. Yeah, I mean, we started this discussion last year. I've talked to a lot of people about the barrels. My family's at 2 of those every week. And I resent, and this isn't directed at anyone specifically, but I resent the implication that I don't care or I'm lazy. It was not coming from you. We recycle everything that we need to recycle. We don't throw away food waste. You cannot paint any one family with a broad brush, even based on household members and whatnot. I think, that I get the rationale, and, I like to be very supportive of the initiatives that are important to Arlington residents, but it's just, I look at that and think of, a day that it fills up, and most of our trash bags, I don't even think would fit in that. And I do what I can, but, every family is different, and I couldn't support that size, and I think, a lot of people I know that I've talked to about that wouldn't be able to, even with the second barrel, it would be very hard. And it's not depending on people's family situations and time constraints. I don't think it's a simple solution to just say, hey, run out and get a couple extra bags. It's not even money. I'm not really concerned about the cost of the bags, but I just envision, based on my consumption and the consumption of people that I know, that if we gave them those barrels, there would just be trash bags outside people's houses, because they're like, I'm not gonna leave this in my house, and, you know, it could cause issues beyond that. You know, I wanna do, like, we sit here, we have our own personal views, and we also have to listen to residents and, you know, the goals of the town as a whole. And I brought up the issue with the statistics, and I get, you know, you do well, you can always do better. It's everyone, in anything we do, the goal is to be the best that we can be. But to some extent, I feel, based on where you can put 2 of those out right now, which I know is technically probably over capacity, but that's what goes out on the curbs in some instances. And, you know, when those are full, you throw a couple bags next to it. And, you know, it's not feasible to have that type of pickup anymore. So I'm definitely on board with the containerization shift. But I think that would be a major culture shock for a lot of families to just transition right to that, to the smaller barrel. I think to some extent it's a solution without a problem. And, you know, I think in many cases, if you use less, you can use less of the capacity. You know, you could still make it a goal for yourself to use half the barrel, or put it out every 2 weeks, or once a month, or whatever it is. And I think it would cause a lot of hardships for people that who have lived in Arlington and have relied on trash pickup as an essential service, which it is. And, you know, I think the flip side of the override is, you know, where we ask people to invest in our schools, in our town infrastructure, but then you take away a portion of their essential service. I think, you know, in the last override, we recognized where, you know, in both the override and the debt exclusions, it affects our seniors, and we're asking them to invest in the, you know, services that they might not necessarily utilize, and we try to, you know, use some of the funds for senior services. And I just liken that to saying, you know, if we're gonna go for an override, but we'll say, hey, but you know, we're also cutting these services. It's a tough argument to make, and I get the financial aspect on the other side of it too, and, you know, where that lands and how powerful that is either way, you know, remains to be determined. But, you know, I think, just from my personal position, I don't think that the lowest barrel size is really feasible for me. So that's right.
And with Mr. Hurd saying, thinking about his household and putting out trash, a question did come to me, because I just started thinking in my head. At my house, which we're a family of 3 that live on my floor, but also 2 kids, one son-in-law, 1 daughter-in-law, 5 grandkids, plus friends. For my recycling, what I have right now in front of my house every Thursday is, it's larger than the 64-gallon. That's full, and I'm religious with, and my youngest is, with folding and packaging, as well as 2 blue bins, just for recycling. And am I correct, what I'm hearing is the extra bag option or the extra barrel option is for trash? Recycling, that's it. So if you exceed that, which I really do, and I'm not talking about around holiday times, it's everybody probably exceeds recycling on that. But is it true that for recycling, that's it, there's no bags, if that doesn't do it for you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is correct. We could make available additional recycling carts, but I would note that we'd be providing that 64-gallon cart per household. So as you noted, you know, speaking to 1 floor, if there are 2 units in your dwelling, we would be issuing 2 of those carts to that property, because technically there could be 2 households there. So you would be receiving 2 64-gallon recycling carts.
All right, but so that was the question, but I'll go to my colleagues first and then do my comments last. Did you have your hand up,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah, sure. I mean,
Higgins?
so yeah, I mean, I'm landing on the 35, because, especially since you can purchase, more, if you need them. I certainly understand that there are families that it's not gonna be enough for. In my case, I have a family of 4 above us, and between the 2 of us, I probably wouldn't even need to buy an extra, cart, because if ever, they go over, we would have space in ours, and they could put theirs in ours, and the rare cases where we go over, we could probably put ours in there. So it would work out for us. Look, when you deal with large numbers, you're always gonna have people that things aren't gonna work out for. And it's really a matter of how do you help those that it's not working out for. If we're saving, like, let's just say, $500K, 120K gets you like 1,000 extra containers, and we as a town, could decide that we could help families that needed extra containers, if they couldn't afford them. And so I think we could probably work out some kind of a policy where if you really need extra containers, then and you can't afford it, we could help you out, and if you needed 10 of them, you really need 10 of them, we'll work it out. But I think we're better off, aiming for the smaller, for the break that we get, and for the incentive that it gives me for us to try to do less volume. And yes, I hear you. People can phrase things in a way that makes it somewhat insulting, and it creates resentment. So I just urge. Oh, we used the word urge.
That's only the first time tonight. So that's very good, Mr.
I suggest that people, when in trying to encourage people to do more recycling, or adopt, what you want, it goes, just try to think about how what you say comes across to people, because you can make enemies, for lack of a better word, out of people who are supporters. So I think you know where I'm going. I'll turn it over to
Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I have given this a lot of thought. Mr. Feeney was kind enough to lend me the 35-gallon barrel for me to put out in my neighborhood to get some feedback, and my neighborhood was not included within the sample that day. It was just the other side of Lake Street that you were on, but the feedback that I received was statements of concern over the size of the container. It's just, and that was almost uniform in my neighborhood. I feel that where we are in this current override cycle, we made a commitment to maintain a certain level of services, and we're running through this override period. But one of the reasons I asked the question of Mr. Feeney is, what are we delivering now versus what would happen? It is a cut, then even with the larger barrel, and I see this as at least we're going to go to the truck that comes and lifts the container. But for me, in the feedback I received and just where I feel where we are right now in the override cycle, I'm not comfortable with the smaller than the 65-gallon container. And I just think that one additional comment I'll make about the containers there, and we'll see the outside of them. If you lift the lid, that 35-gallon container is a lot smaller because of the indentation, and it's just very difficult to get trash in there. And for myself, we use one barrel. We probably don't fill the 45-gallon, but I'm thinking about my neighbors, and I'm thinking that this is a basic service that we're providing, that we said we're going to provide through the override period. And for me, the only way we can do that is through the 64-gallon. And I'm also concerned there's going to be plenty of households that won't be able to put their trash in the 35-gallon barrel container, and they're going to use bags, and there's going to be reliability issues. I hope there aren't, but there will be. And that could create issues as well in terms of those bags staying out there. So at least for this next contract, I mean, it's going to be 5 years. If it's 3, maybe it would be a little easier for all of us to go with the bigger one. But I don't, for me, I'm not there yet imposing the smaller container, I'm all for encouraging people, throw less trash. I think we need, we participate in the food diversion program through a private vendor. I think there needs to be more of that throughout town. I think there needs to be maybe more communication and more people willing to do that. And I think people need to think about what they're throwing out and throw out less, but you can still think about that and do that with a larger container, put less in it. So I'm with Mr. Hurd, maybe for different reasons, but on the larger container right now.
Okay. It's funny, when I've been talking to different people around town, and on each day I targeted a place to go to that I pretty much knew what the comments were going to be. And similar to your somewhat scientific or unscientific poll of the 42% versus the 57% with the points in there. That's pretty much how the town fell. And it was interesting because when I was also talking to people who wanted to stick with the unlimited trash, and I've asked about family households and what they were and what the size was. And as my colleagues have pointed out, whether you're for the 35 or I'm saying 64, I can't think of what the middle one is. 45? Yeah. No matter what, it's going to be a decrease in that level of service that we provide as a basic service. And I accept that. The other thing is, and it's funny, for the people that I know, the 35, they'd be getting an extra 1-2 barrels, plus on those heavy weeks, an extra bag. It was interesting when I would talk to them about composting. They're like, we used to do that. We used to have it in front of the house. I'll just say the bucket, they called it something else, with the word bucket in it. And it's funny how, everything old is becoming new again. And I'm really excited to hear from Ms. Milan about the composting. And I know what you've been doing in terms of trying to get people to put less items into the trash and get it down, whether it's a swap shed or recycling, or and I really do think Arlington's at the forefront of that. But thinking about everything that in terms of when I've been on the board, whether it's been East Arlington, Mass Ave redesign, ultimately it's a compromise, whether, Appleton Street, ultimately it's a compromise. Even today, the meeting with the MBTA, CSO issue, that's probably going to be something of a compromise, because that's what has to happen. But also in terms of which we all have been doing, whether we are sitting here as elected board members, but as citizen activists, town meeting members, going out for another override, operating override, and/or whatever it is to be defined, looking at the split in the town of the 42 versus 57, looking at what I'm hearing about in terms of people that could be serviced and be fine with the 35-gallon, and, some may say, and I don't want to pay, I'm not saying you, but I don't want to pay for other people, but the town is pretty split on this, and for me, having the larger barrel, which is a reduction of the 99-gallon that people will have to get used to, but also having that doesn't preclude that you have to fill that up to the max every time. To me, with the people right now that are at the 99 that have to go down either to the 64 or the 35, no matter what, they're, it may be they're buying another barrel, adding to the, another 50 on top of 150 on top of what the override is of 4 or 5, whatever, 100 a year. Factor that in. And if you're a family that's more than 2 people, we're 3 adults, but we're really not. My kids and thankfully grandkids keep coming home. That's not to say people that right now can't get it to just the 35 for trash. And I'm not kidding you when I'm saying right now with the recycling, I'm going to have to try to figure out or say to my husband, You're the former Marine, you're gonna have to make it fit and squish it in, because I'm not kidding you, I already have that size in 2 blue, and it's the same thing with the trash, so, and in the interest of, right now, the town's 42, 57, I think slowly coming down, revisiting it in the 5th year, or if there's any way, I'm sure there's not, but where we have the prevailing wage issue, that we're gonna have to factor in year 4 and 5. I don't know if there's some wiggle room in there to, if we say we can now downsize it a little bit more. That's not to say that right now, the 57% aren't gonna find a way to put out less trash, but I don't see how, because I think Arlington, I've gone around to people that were so adverse to the recycling program, that have big households, and it's almost like like you say, it's fun putting the trash out. It's almost like a, fun thing for them to do. So they've been doing it, I think, Arlington residents. So for me, in the interest of compromise, do you keep the 42% happy and go with the 35? And they say, it's fine for me, it doesn't affect me, and tick off the 57? Or do I go with the 64 gallon, which satisfies 100% right now, and I really think it would be a small minority of the people that would be upset and ticked off, saying, well, I live with the, you know what I mean? I'm trying to see what's the best compromise to satisfy the town, as well as we are reducing, there's no longer put out, I didn't even realize there was a 99-gallon limit. Most people a lot of people in Arlington think, with the exception of, you got that silly mattress thing now, I can't put that out, but I've seen people put out whole house loads of furniture when a tenant is left, which I didn't do. I recycled and hired a truck, cost $3,000, but anyway, so I'm for the larger, just in light of the override that's coming up. People are gonna have to get used to that. Take it one step at a time, see if we have any wiggle room in year 4 or 5. We probably don't. It's probably just gonna be the prevailing wage issue, and that's all that can be renegotiated, but you don't know. But that's not to say in the next 5 years, if, we follow it and track it, we can revisit the issue, so that's where I'm at. So does anyone else want to make some comments, and then if anyone wants to make motions, but Mr. Helmuth, I'm not saying you have to make a motion.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm not going to make a motion. I appreciate the discussion. I want to make something really clear. There's no room for environmental shaming in this discussion. I certainly didn't intend that in my comments. I don't think it was heard either, but I think that when we speak with the public, that's also really important, because I personally do want to encourage residents to rethink those who could be doing more. And some people, like my neighbor here, are doing everything they can. I believe it. Those who could be doing more, I want to encourage them to do more over time. So this is not a values judgment. I think for me, I can see where the board is, and I'm not going to make a counter motion because I think it's being together is good on this. But I think for me, it's just a matter of when we would make a change in how we do trash. And I think there's an argument to be made, and a good one, actually, that maybe we don't do it right now because of the timing. And I think Mr. DeCourcy's points about the commitments we made in the override, I think, are persuasive in that regard. Speaking for myself, I would like to see Arlington move towards being more of a, treating trash more like we treat water or electricity, that we pay for what we use. I think that, there's not a consensus enough on the board to do that tonight, but that's something that I want to continue pursuing in the future, because I think that ultimately that may become both a fiscal and an environmental reality for us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Did you, Mr.?
I'll make a motion to recommend the 64-gallon barrel to the town manager.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Diggins?
So I'll just say, although I appreciate that you feel that we should all be together, I think it's okay if we aren't, and so that, and I think I think it's just okay if we aren't, and I hope that if people feel differently about that, you let me know, but, okay, cool.
And while I understand the ultimate decision is the town manager's, I truly think the discussion he's heard tonight and heard before tonight and will hear after tonight really helps guide. And I do appreciate the opportunity that you gave us and Ms. Spears and Mr. St. Swan, Mr. Ballin, sorry. I saw your streets. And Charlotte Milan here tonight. And the vote also, I think, guides the town manager, and I think you wouldn't find, necessary unanimity if you took 20 people off the street, or maybe even 5, so there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to make sure there's no other motions. So we have a motion, oh, sorry.
I just say, if we have too many unanimous votes, then the public won't think we're doing our job, so. We have to have split votes every now and then.
Oh, you would have loved being on the board when I first got on. Wonderful, 4-1. But anyways, on a motion, I don't mean to make light, I apologize. On a motion by Mr. Hurd for trash receptacle, and that's the only vote. I think we're pretty set on the recycling. With the 64 gallons, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey. Any further discussion or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
The 3-2 vote. Thank you. Next, we have discussion and approval of the draft select board report to town meeting. I'll start with Attorney Cunningham first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As part of the materials for the board in tonight's meeting, a draft report has been prepared and provided as part of the public materials. Articles 15 and 16, which were the most recent warrant article hearings, have also been included as part of the draft product for the board. I'd like to thank the board for setting the timeline for these warrant article hearings and allowing us to move forward in a timely fashion to get this report, at least in its draft form, for the board's review tonight. I especially want to thank Ms. Marr for all of her work on this and creating a document that's very user-friendly this year. So in accordance with Mr. Dingens, Mr. Helmus' recommendations, I think it makes the document much more functional. And I think that at this point, these have all been voted upon, with the exception of 15 and 16. However, I think that there's some room if the board would want to take some sort of other vote to allow for administrative changes in the next few days. We do have some time to make those changes. If the board has suggestions or comments that it wants to make tonight, I'm certainly aware that there is no additional board meeting prior to the first night of town meeting, and this is a document we want to get to. At least I think that's the case. I'm not sure. Is a document we want to get printed and made available to the public as soon as possible, but if there are things that the board has seen in the report that they would like changed or in administrative fashion, we can accommodate that and take a conditional vote and make sure that those changes are made and that the document is in a form that the board is comfortable with, and we provide that to town meeting when the time comes.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. And I think what we have is a get me to the printer on time Wednesday. So, Mr. DeCoursey?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Attorney Cunningham and Ms. Marr for, and Attorney Munson for all the work on the report. And I think we're at a stage where we had these hearings they spread out pretty well. I think I had some questions, just, obviously the votes we've all made, we're not changing the votes. There are some of the comments, just for consistency, I would like the opportunity, maybe to have an opportunity through you, Madam Chair, to make some administrative changes for consistency between the votes. And there are a couple areas here and there where there is, I'm not going to say they read like minutes, but there's a little bit of back and forth that I think could probably come out of the report as part of our recommendation. I think it's helpful for us in terms of taking a look at what we did and what we considered. But that's the type of administrative change that I think we have a couple more days. I think Thursday morning is probably the latest. Maybe we did close the business on Wednesday. But I'd like to propose a motion that we adopt the Select Board report subject to administrative changes solely on the comments at the direction of the chair or her designee.
second that, Madam Chair. I think that makes sense to me. I agree with Mr. DeCoursey that I think that the comments could be refined so that they're a little clearer up front to town meeting what the purpose of the vote was. According to the uninformed viewer, maybe read a little less like minutes and more like the board speaking. You know, I think that'd be consistent with our past reports, but without changing. I think implicit in this would be without changing the substance, the facts, the arguments, or whatever in the comments. So that's my understanding of the motion. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Okay. Mr. Diggins?
That's too bad, because I was actually going to ask him to put in that I thanked him profusely for doing something. So, no, I know exactly where you're coming from. And I agree. And I wasn't going to say it, because I just felt like, I don't want to micromanage, report. Not that you are, but I'm totally on board where you're coming from. And the only other request that I would ask for us to consider is in the cases where there is a non-unanimous vote, in the old report, and I am referencing the old report, we would have right up front, who wasn't in the minority or who wasn't in the majority. And even though it's indicated, when you read the comments, who it was that was dissented, for lack of a better word. I think if we just had it in parentheses, who it was, the folks would know. So that's the only.
I think it was just me.
I can amend that.
Is that all right, Ms.
Yeah,
Mar?
I can amend that.
Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
We should allow the dissenting voters to write their own little dissent at the bottom.
Dissenting opinion. Minority report.
Any further? Attorney Cunningham, did you?
Madam Chair, and I'm happy to work with any board member that wants to make those types of administrative changes. I think as has been mentioned, nothing substantive would be changed, no votes are going to be changed. And I would also note that I don't think the one administrative change we don't need to make is I don't think there's one use of the word urge anywhere in the
Like urine.
I can't say one more thing, and it is just gorgeous, so thank you very much, and so I think it's even better, than what ARB had.
I'll take the compliment.
So I just love the formatting, and like I said, when people are able to click past the canine report, they'll be very happy. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, no further discussion on a motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. We have new business. Ms.
No
Mar-
new business, thank you, Mrs. Mahoney.
Attorney Cunningham.
No new business. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Town Manager Feeney, welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No new business.
Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just briefly, this afternoon, the chair, myself, Mr. Feeney, Superintendent of Schools Homan, Mr. Schlickman, Ms. Ricker, and two members of our legislative delegation and their staff met with the MBTA representatives, namely General Manager Phil Lang, his government affairs person. He had two people on Zoom from the real estate department and legal department, and we had a very good discussion. We really appreciate that he came out to Arlington to meet with us in the town manager's conference room. We had an hour booked. We were there for about an hour and a half, and we discussed the CSO issue at Alewife Station, bus service in general in Arlington. We talked about the MBTA assessment, recognizing that that's not his recommendation. We talked about the bus turnaround at the end of the 77 bus terminal in the Heights, and we also talked about challenges that we've had working with the T on various improvements that we'd like to have done over the years on the bike path. And I have to say, he was very willing to work with us, keep us informed, and I really appreciated his frankness, saying, I may not be able to do what you're asking me, but I will keep you informed and I will get back to you. And that's especially refreshing on the Alewife issue with the CSO. So I told him after the meeting that as a state, we're very fortunate to have Phil Lang as a general manager of the T. He's done a great job, and I think it was good for him to hear our concerns, but it was also good for us to see that he was willing to listen and respond.
Mr. Diggins.
So yesterday, I went to the I guess it was the opening of the Arlington 250, yes, and I was hoping I would see, Mr. Hurd there, in his new colonial, gear, doing a dance, but I came late, so maybe I missed you, but I brought you some beads just in case. You didn't make it.
I unfortunately was in a hockey rink all weekend, but
No, but it was really,
getting it geared up for the next couple. I don't want to, reveal all the secrets too early.
all right, but it was well attended, and it was a good time. So that's it, thank you.
Mr. Hurd.
No, I wanted to mention that I didn't get a chance to go because we were in parity, so we were in for my hockey team. Unfortunately, it didn't work out well for us, but that's a story for a different day. But I do want to, again, reiterate and thank all the people, both town staff and volunteers that have been working on the 250 leading up to right now. I want to say thousands of man hours, but it might be millions of man hours once you calculate all the work that everyone's put into it. So, we have a lot coming up, and it's going to be a very exciting time for the town, and there's a lot more work to be done, but it really has been a culmination of a ton of effort on both town staff and volunteers in town, so glad to see it starting to roll out.
Mr. Helmut.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to express particular appreciation to the Arlington Police Department for its performance and extra workload on Saturday. Not only do we have officers at the polling locations keeping our elections secure, but we also had extra officers deployed in Arlington Center for the hands-off protest, which I was proud to participate in. And I have to say that in both at the polls and at the protest, our officers conducted themselves with the usual professionalism and respect. And I felt at the protest particularly that we were well guarded and cared for, and I think that just the tone of their presence was exactly right. They were there to keep us safe. They were there to keep everybody playing by the same rules, and I know that that's not easy. And I always appreciate our men and women in blue, but I did especially on Saturday.
Thank you. Just want to reiterate what Mr. DeCoursey said, but especially want to thank the town manager and his staff for pulling off this meeting and getting the actual general manager, as well as 4 to 5 plus people, also from the MBTA, all the different schedules, but also really creating a space, a meeting that was very productive, and we acknowledged on issues that really the T has no control over. Even the CSO issue, it's a Cambridge CSO, but it's up against the Alloy parking garage. But as Mr. DeCoursey said, that, General Manager Ng is certainly refreshing, new style, a national star. I won't go into all that, but the people who are at the meeting will know what I'm referencing. But I do appreciate Mr. Feeney and his staff not only organizing and pulling off this meeting, but what was pretty evident from today is that the meeting didn't end when we all left. There definitely, I think, of all the asks, and there were quite a few for the 5 different agenda items, I think the biggest ask, and all of us said, we know you have to take all this new information and come back to us, but I think the biggest ask was, please keep the town of Arlington involved in these processes, that right now we don't have a seat through our town manager and our department heads, even if we don't have an actual physical seat in the process on these issues. Keep us informed and keep the lines of communication, and that's definitely was agreed to. I just want to check with my colleagues. I know, and thank you, Mr. Helmuth, for reminding me that we have April 16th. We put that in as sort of a backup meeting if we need that, and I was wondering if that's something we can unpencil from our calendars, because the previous chair, whoever that was, did such a great job along with town staff with getting through the warrant articles and everything. So I think, unless I hear anything different, we can plan on our next meeting being April 28th, and we won't need the April 16th. Excellent, because my precinct and precinct 12 are organizing meetings, and I was maybe for 4/16, I can now do that.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Same
so you know what I'm
precinct.
talking about.
Yeah, I do,
Yes.
yeah, good.
And then the last two things, I do want to thank Ms. Bongiorno, the acting town manager. I was telling Mr. Feeney, at least in terms of dealing with me and the different issues that came up from Menotomy Manor to the AMP Up meeting, which I do have some thoughts on the master plan meeting, the first one that was held, but because of my schedule, I haven't had a chance to discuss it with the town manager, so I won't go into that. But I have had preliminary discussions with Ms. Bongiorno, who did a great job, again, in acting town manager, and that's really good to know that we have someone that can step into Mr. Feeney's steed and conduct herself accordingly, and there was no delay time or anything. She got me answers right away, even when I said, I know you're busy, you don't have to get back to me right away, but she did, so, and I do appreciate that. And that's it for my new business. With that, I know we have an executive session. Before I call on Mr. DeCoursey, anything, Attorney Cunningham, that you would like to remind us of or make a statement before we go in?
Just thank you, Madam Chair. Just if the chair wouldn't mind declaring the purpose for the executive session, and then just a reminder that because to declare whether the board intends to come back into live session, or does the board intend to adjourn from executive session? And then finally, just a reminder that to go into executive session requires a roll call vote, which I'm happy to take if the chair so directs.
Yes, please. And Mr. DeCoursey, I think he might be able to read the whole motion for me, so.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'd like to move that the board go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation filed against the town of Arlington by Christopher Loretti. To conduct these sessions in an open session could have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town. Therefore, I move that we go into that the executive session, which is in accordance with exception to the open meeting law set forth in General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3 would apply, and that we adjourn at the end of the executive session, not come back into open session.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Helmuth. Any further comment on that? If not, Attorney Cunningham, roll call vote, please.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
5-0 vote.